Like attendees?
Well, we had that side for attendees, but it's got food. So,
okay.
So that takes away from the seating.
But if they were sitting over there, I don't think they could have seen that.
That's
right.
Yeah, better.
It's like I wonder if you just flip flop it next time. I can let the campus be over here and put that over there.
We try that.
Put the camera over there, maybe.
Yeah, we'll try that next time. See.
It's already recording, right? And you'll just edit.
Okay, you good to go?
All right.
Yeah. All right. Time is 5:05. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with roll call.
Shannon Rivera. Thanks. Amanda Milan.
Brady Carson present.
Shonda Former Mill present.
Emily Cunningham present.
Neil Shanks present.
Jessica Hill present.
Okay. Any public comment?
Is there any public comment over there on that? No.
Nope. Celebrations and recognitions.
I will do all the celebrating tonight. Miss Whitlark is out this evening, and Miss Menifee is out today too. So we have several great things to celebrate as we started a really exciting school year this year. We're almost 2 full weeks into school, which is hard to believe. Quick few things for you. First,
Nope, that's not it.
not yet.
Give me just a second.
Just a moment.
There you go.
So during our professional development to kick off the year, our district-wide celebration, we were able to celebrate service awards for teachers and staff across our districts. We had 14 staff members who were recognized for meeting one of our milestones for service at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And we had a 20-year and 25-year represented this year. So it's you're keeping track. There's not a whole lot of 25-year possibilities since we've been around just slightly over that amount of time. So it's pretty amazing to recognize the staff who have been around since really our very beginning. But excited to celebrate all 14 of these folks who have stuck by us for a long time. So celebrating those 14 folks. Also got celebrated that same district-wide kickoff that we did in August. 13 teachers, excuse me, across our elementary, middle, and high school campuses who earned TIA designations. This is the teacher incentive allotment that we've talked a lot about over these last few years. And the total awards that were received and sent to the district totaled $186,353 that goes towards salaries for teachers. These are photos of those groups of teachers who are recognized at different levels of designation. It's a real complicated process, but what you need to know is over $180,000 that went toward teacher pay on top of the salaries that they earn here for 5 years as long as they stay apart. So pretty incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was worth it.
Yes, that is worth it.
It's been a lot of work. And while we're celebrating, I'm gonna recognize Angie Cotton because she loves to be recognized. And we oversee our TIA process for our district in her role as the Director of State and Federal Compliance. She oversees that program, and it's a lot to keep up with. And we've been working on it for years now, and now we actually see that come to fruition. Next, another part of our trainings this year, we did some district-wide training about reunification at our elementary and secondary campuses. Dr. Newman and Mr. Rumsey, the Director of Facilities and Safety, helped lead us in that training. This is a process in which if we had an emergency situation that required us to evacuate our campuses and then reunify parents with their students. It's a really complicated process, and depending on the circumstance and reason for that evacuation and reunification, a really stressful and emotional kind of a situation. We're all aware this is not a school situation, but flooding that happened in Central Texas this summer that was so tragic involved lots of reunification of families and really horrible circumstances. So we were preparing through this process following a really specific model called the standard reunification method. That's put together by the I Love You Guys Foundation, and Dr. Newman and Mr. Rumsey led our elementary campus through this process, and our secondary campus. We did some role playing to kind of walk through different roles that are involved in that, how we would walk through that. It was really successful time to make sure all of our teachers and staff trained and prepared for this kind of situation. Hey, Channel 25 came and ran a story on
Last night.
very own
Last
last night. I thought she did a live feed from this morning.
Well, they recorded it yesterday, did a live feed yesterday, and then published it today.
Okay.
Yep.
The story ran for Channel 25, celebrate our food service team and the new things that have been coming really in particular as we start off this year. Chef Nate, who's our director of nutrition and food service, was featured in this along with our food service team. They've been doing really incredible stuff to start off the year. Our students and staff are really excited, particularly on the first day of school, as they're kind of wowed with really healthy and delicious food all at the same time. Being cooked in our cafeteria, our cafeteria staff has worked incredibly hard to serve nutritious, healthy, and enticing food this year. We're already hearing about it from students, but we were able to have this story on Channel 25. It's available on our YouTube channel, so if you didn't get to catch it on Channel 25, you can go to that and see this story. It's really exciting thing to celebrate. This summer, we had two of our high school best and brightest go to the FBLA Nationals. FBLA is the Future Business Leaders of America. And they went alongside our Director of Career Technical Education, Dustin Ward. We're really proud to have Kevin Kelly and Roy Carney, both students headed to college and arriving at their colleges this very week. They earned a spot going to nationals for marketing, and they went to California to participate in the national competition. It was a really great moment. They joined 90 other high-achieving high schoolers. So we're really proud of their work. It's a really cool trip for them to do. Certainly a memorable experience and a way to cap off their high school experience.
I'm taking first. That's impressive out of that many.
Yeah.
Oh, down.
Many of you were present for this event, but we want to acknowledge the ribbon cutting that we had over at Rapoport right there at the end of July. We had an amazing attendance to officially open this space and welcome in our community to see what was in store. So many things are already happening. It's 172 degrees outside most days this time of year. And our coaching staff and students are able to be in a gym instead of out in the 172 degree weather. We're doing physical education and all kinds of exciting things happening in our PE classes in that space. And then our athletic teams gearing up cross country and volleyball both coming. That leads me to the next slide, which is our first home volleyball game in Rapoport is coming up next week on August 26th. I'm going to give you that date to invite you to come and see the Lady Ravens in action. They're taking on Wortham starting at 5 p.m. in the gym. Ticket sales are all electronic this year and will be available online. See blasts about that coming pretty quick. We have a lot of new systems and processes coming online as we are occupying our own space, but really excited to see these Ravens compete in our very own gym. So the first home night, please come out, support that. We're going to pack the stands. Ask you to also mark your calendar for September 11th, right here on this campus. Rock the Block, which is our back to school event. We have done this for many years now in partnership with the Greater Waco YMCA. It's a come and go event, but it starts at 5 and goes till 6:30. Right here in the front campus. Most of what we do happens right outside the wing, so it cools off a little bit. A lot of things are coming. Spirit Squad will perform. We have free T-shirts to hand out to parents and families. I think Dr. Newman's taking care of T-shirts for some folks ahead of time.
Yes. Board.
You all.
I'll get Chelsea to
It's a free event, and it's a way that we just kick off the year and celebrate and kicking off. So mark your calendar. We hope you'll come. We'd love to have as many of our board members there present. It will be a packed house. We tend to have 1,000+ people here, families and students.
800 shirts again. This year we are doing shirts just for staff and then giveaway shirts as well. A total of 800, which is what we did last year. So it'll be 160 or whatever. And then the remainder will go on the tables for people to come in.
think there's maybe one more celebration here, and you'll see this happening at board meetings throughout this year. We want to bring to you some celebrations that are mandated by law, some special observances and recognitions that we're going to celebrate with you in this public meeting as our board. So I want to celebrate with you August 26th, Women's Independence Day. I'm just going to read this to you because I don't think there's a better way to celebrate.
Yep.
August 26th, Women's Independence Day, to commemorate the ratification of the in 1920 of the 19th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which guaranteed women the right. Wow.
Yes, here, here. Yay.
Momentous
Clappy, clappy.
occasion in our history, and certainly something that impacts our government and our society today. We'll be doing these special observances and recognitions most months this year. Buckle up for September. There's a whole list. And this will be something that'll be open for some more policy you'll look at later on. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to celebrate all these things. These are representations of things across our whole district, elementary, middle, high school, district-wide. Lots of incredible stuff that's happened to start our school year.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ellis. I know you were instrumental in the TIA process too, so we're really grateful to both you and Ms. Cotton. Thank you.
A lot of work.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda items. Hopefully you've had a chance to review all these pieces, including our 100 score for the Charter First results. We can entertain if you wanted to pull something out and ask more questions about it, or entertain a motion for the consent agenda items in one piece.
We'll make a motion to approve the consent. Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. And we'll move on to item 3.1, which is the report from the parent representative. Silvira, anything?
Not much. I met this morning with them of the MacArthur. She's brand new to the school. And so we went out for coffee this morning, and she wanted to know how she can get involved in school, and so we have like an hour meeting.
Wow.
It was fun. It was fun. She had two little kids in MacArthur. Wow, that was very interesting that she reached out to me, and
Yeah.
we're gonna handle.
Thank
I
you
love
for
that.
taking the time to do that. Really meaningful. Okay, the faculty representative, Ms. Howard.
I sent out an email on Friday to all staff, letting them know if they have any questions. One would be, they're wanting, someone asked for clarity on the teacher retention allotment, just if SPED and dyslexia are part of the instructional staff. And so we know instructional staff will get the increased pay. They're wanting to know if SPED or dyslexia will be.
So I'll clarify also in the summary that we send out, because that new salary schedule, if you guys approve that, there's a lot of clarification that'll happen with that one. But short answer is, if someone is assigned students on their schedule and they are the teacher of record, then they are eligible for the teacher incentive allotment. I mean, the teacher retention allotment from the state. That is the guidance from the state. Now, there are a few like weird scenarios that we're going to ask clarification on. But I'll communicate with anybody that might be a question mark if that's not clear for their role. But if they have a schedule with kids that they teach, they're eligible. So a dyslexia teacher that pulls kids and has a schedule, like they're a teacher because they have kids, they have a schedule.
Next one, they were asking about updates if teachers with kids get free after school, but I know that was dependent upon what was the money on. So yeah. Another staff member had brought up that they've asked for a retention plan for teachers that Dr. Newman would present. Has that been made and reviewable to staff? I forwarded that to her. She sent me the document that was at the end of April this past year that she had sent out. I forwarded that on and asked if they needed any more clarification. This one, the accountability scores indicate a continuing pattern of underperformance at the elementary in particular, and to a lesser extent the middle school. What specific actions are being implemented to address these issues, and how do these differ from existing efforts which have yielded limited results? What are the contributing factors that need to be addressed, and how are these factors?
I'll talk about that when we talk about the scores. And then there's Tyler and Jennifer are doing a formal presentation to the board next month of campus specific initiatives, activities to respond to those.
Thank you, Ms. Howard.
Oh,
Good, good.
Another staff member, so they would like to keep the discussion going about 4 days a week because other schools in this area have seen positive results. From memory, there was already discussion on that, and that did not work well with our families that go here, but I wasn't sure, so I'm asking that. Wasn't that discussed on?
It was discussed, yeah, multiple times. And I think the feedback from the board members was that it wouldn't work for families very well. I will just also say TEA is working really hard to not allow that to be a funding option anymore. So if you apply for grants, you actually get dinged on it if you have a 4-day week. If you're no improvement plans are going to be accepted for schools that offer less than 165 days of instruction. So they've already been denying improvement plans for schools that are less than 165 days. So TEA is definitely reversing on what that looks like. But the initial conversations were, I think the board brought to the table is that families had said that would be hard. Yeah, no. Because
the other side of that, we look at actual calendar, there are 2 weeks just about every month where there are already 41 weeks. So it's kind of, you already have a 50% approach to having a schedule.
The last thing was just a comment that they feel like there would be a better chance of getting staffing for the special education department if there was a stipend for those positions because they're hard. So that would be a consideration board at some point if that was an opportunity to do stipends for special education positions.
and that is one of the on the list of budget asks.
Okay, we'll shift to, thank you so much, Ms. Howard. For board committee reports, we'll start with finance. Amanda, I know that, do you want to speak to our finance? I mean, basically that happens later in the agenda. The finance committee met and discussed salary options, kind of the big picture financials. And so Dr. Newman's going to talk about that later in the agenda. So I'm going to pivot that to you.
The committee is supportive of Dr. Newman's recommendations.
For the salary scale.
Yeah.
During our committee meeting.
Thank you. And district improvement committee, anything?
We're still sorting out our calendars.
Yep.
So semester starts.
Mhm.
So, but I think
That's some potential dates and times.
it's-
We'll have a meeting before the next board meeting.
And the facilities committee.
Before Dr. Newman came on spearhead, I just had one, SJ's not here, maybe you can check to see about going ahead with the promotion of the fundraiser with the bricks and the ornaments. Last year, we had a very short window for the ornaments. And I think it'd be a great idea to go ahead and start promoting that on all social media. That way orders can come in, they can have. And those are very, very a good price point. We go up $10. And
So I think the other thing is that facilities committee flip-flopped their meetings. So they were like immediately after a board meeting, which means you'd go for a long, long time from the meeting to the board meeting. And so they flip-flopped it now, so it'll be right after the board meeting. So discussions that can be had here,
spear.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they can be more responsive to board discussions as well, instead of kind of falling. They're more in between, I guess, for those. And so this is the month that it stretched between those.
I believe our last discussion, you were talking about the handicap parking, which I feel is seemingly resolved until we can see how packed or how much more need there is for additional space. There were some old mounted
Yeah.
signs that have been ordered that have been placed out for every game, so that will be available for additional parking. And then the badges for board members at games. or if we're entering the school, just to identify us as part of the district somehow. And maybe in consideration for home game passes.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ms. Hill. I'm, oh, sorry.
I just wanted to add an additional comment for the ribbon cutting celebration. That was such a wonderful occasion to attend together, and I was so thrilled to see our work and effort in that space, and it felt really good. So if you didn't have an opportunity to really relish it and go back and look again, like I've gone back since and walked through the space, it is so nice, and I encourage you all to come to the first one. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's on there just talking about them updates, but it's like a revisit should be the welcome wall. But adding on the pieces, like it's a phased approach.
Yeah, so at the facilities committee on the 27th, there's a team of people that'll be on that. And I think you've already talked with Menifee about some ideas for like other signage around the building, like inside, but like near the concession stands and a wall of champions and then the history wall and then quotes and phrases up in the weight room. And so I think Foreman and Menifee sat and talked about a lot of options that he would like to see, but that's coming to the next facilities meeting on the 27th.
Well, has the championship trophy made it to the trophy case yet?
Yeah.
No,
It's in the,
it's in the office.
it won't fit in the trophy.
Fair enough.
But
It can't sit on top or it doesn't.
we're gonna put it on top.
He would like a secure place that locks, I think is what Coach Russ.
Yeah.
He would like its own cabinet that has glass and locks with a light on the inside. he
Lighted,
said.
right.
Yeah. The other thing, the facilities committee helped drive the campus updates. So school has started. The campus updates happened throughout the summer as far as painting, the signs on the front, in the front lobbies. If you've walked through, you've seen them on a lot of the campuses. We did have 2 buildings that we put them up and then they immediately unpeeled themselves. So we've got to have other sort of vinyl that we can put up that are going to stick to those walls. But we've had lots of positive reports from just the way it feels with like no yellow in the middle of the buildings. And it's this nice gray color that's a half shade of the gray that's in the gym. So that is done, complete, and all the way around campus, as well as landscaping updates that happened before school started as well. So that was one of the other things that the committee worked on in the spring, summer.
If you didn't get a grant, please order, and if you did get one, go take a picture of it, it looks really, really nice.
Me too.
We've got 6 on our desk to be installed. So those couple of them that we got a little bit later. And then those are, I think we're up to date with all that have been ordered to date.
Okay.
And so once those go in, that should be all the ones that we have right now, but then with a new push and we'll be ready to launch again for the next
Can we
program.
push that at Rock the Block somehow? Is there any way?
Sure.
Kind of.
Yeah, if you need a board member, or I can man a table.
Yeah.
If that would be
QR
helpful.
code.
We could probably use like a table tent, like a
Yeah.
QR code on there. Okay.
I'll ask this.
Okay.
Yeah,
We can work that out.
the bricks look amazing. Thank you so much. Really
Okay.
do.
Very good.
And thank you, Coach Foreman, for all your leadership at the gym and just that the ribbon cutting was as much your effort and the administration's. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the discussion, possible actions. A lot of these require a vote. We'll start with the board policy updates. Those relate to the new Texas legislation requirements. So hopefully you had a chance to eyeball those. I'll entertain a motion, or if you had a specific question about any one of those.
Do we have to vote for all of them at one time?
So you can vote for them as kind of a slate. You don't have to vote for them each individually as you move through there. You can vote for them as a slate, board policies as presented. That's what we do with our board, our big board packet. We just say all board policies as presented, and they go kind of in a set for that night. If you have one that you need to discuss individually, we can completely do that.
But the language went through or came from our general counsel.
Yeah.
Or-
Directly. And anything that was really editable is in yellow. Which is really just, there's a few little bit of, like, it's like name changes, and then there's a little bit on like the cell phone policy, whether we were gonna let them have it or not. But we'd already talked about that, so this is just reflecting what the board has already.
these have to be enacted.
Only the ones that were initially, some that are still pending, come back on the.
Okay.
Legislative.
Yeah, just the ones that are in the drive.
I guess I was confused on one of them.
Okay.
Because looked like there were, according from the email you sent that had that nice summary, the PDF
Mhm.
and all that. There's some of them that say that charters are exempt.
So the ones from the legislative update document that say charters exempt, you shouldn't have a policy related to those here. The only thing you should have is those that are required of charters and already have guidance from TEA through our through our legal counsel who has presented the policies. That's all that you should have in front of you.
Okay.
That's why there's just a handful, when our board policies are actually hundreds of pages long.
Yes.
All you have right now is just the ones that are either new or updated based on the legislative requirements.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve item 4I, board policy updates.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Policy updates pass. Okay, Dr. Newman, consideration of teacher salary scale.
Let me go ahead and scroll it. Just look at it. Okay, so as we kind of. Is it up? Oh, wait, hang on a second. So as we talked about before, during the legislative process, they put into formula an actual teacher retention allotment. It's a flow-through dollar, meaning it goes directly from the legislative appropriations straight through to the teachers that TEA identifies as eligible for the retention allotment. There it is. Okay. So legal guidance suggestion is that we have base salary, clearly identify teacher retention allotment dollars, and then give a clear total compensation for staff. The thought is, as long as it's in formula funding, we need to provide it. We must legally provide it for teachers. Should that come out of formula funding, we likely would not be able to financially support this level of added money into teachers, like directly into teachers. Like this is not dollars that we could support if we didn't have that funding mechanism through the legislative funding cycle. So that's what you have in front of you. It's our current salary schedule in the first column. The second column is according to what TEA has said, which is after you complete year 3, which is weird because there's a year 0 on there. So after you complete year 3, we are a small and mid-school size. So you would get 4,000 there. Then you would get 4,000 in your 4th year. And then after you complete year 5, so the beginning of year 5 on this chart, year 0 plus 4, then you get $8,000 each year, not cumulative 8 each year, but like you get $8,000 each year you stay in teaching on top of whatever just that base salary is. The great thing about this for teachers is much like teacher incentive allotment, that goes into their retirement salary. So it's not a one-time stipend. It's not, here's an additional 13th check. It is in their salary and counts towards retirement. So that's really, really helpful for teachers at any point in their career, but especially as they're nearing the upper end of their career schedule from that. So this money, again, directly flows through. The couple of questions that we've had, who's eligible? So I mentioned that just briefly earlier. So if you are not, even if you're on, quote, the teacher scale, if you are not a teacher in the classroom with a schedule with kids, this does not count for you. So legal counsel's recommendation is that this actually becomes just a teacher salary schedule. Right now, we use this schedule for several different people, for instructional coaches, or for maybe deans, or for a behavior coach, or things like that. But those people need to come off of the teacher scale. And the only people on this teacher scale are actual teachers that have classroom instruction schedules with students in those classes. So that's one. There's a couple of kind of like odd ones that we need to get clarification on. One of the things we're being really careful of, we're doing an audit of years of service right now. So we're going folder by folder, teacher by teacher, and checking to make sure that what's in the computer system is correct, making sure that it aligns with what TEA has in their system, so that we don't miss anybody and give somebody money that we're not going to get reimbursed for, or that we don't miss somebody and they should have had the money and we don't get them paid for that. So we're validating years of service right now. And then we're also double checking all of our coding. So Donna Bird pulled a coding report today and sent it out to Tyler and Jennifer and said, hey, please just verify this is who our computer system says has kids in the classroom. It pulls up on the schedule. This is what TEA is going to be pulling from. And we have a couple of people that were like, actually, they don't teach. Or wait a minute, they do teach. Why didn't they show up? And so we're troubleshooting some of those so that when we submit, we know that it's complete, not only on years of service, but also on their actual duties and responsibilities. So we're doing a kind of a validation check on that right now. So again, what this would do is this doesn't count for anybody else, no support staff, no administrators, no anybody else, no mid-level leaders, no hourly, none of that. This is just for teachers in the classroom that actually have teachers and actually have schedules. And so these raises are mandated, but this gives real clarity to staff. Like, okay, this is my base pay. This is also my salary, but it is directly funded from the teacher retention allotment. This is what total compensation would be that's reported to TRS for annual salary. And then we can always make other adjustments down the road. The board can choose, should funding allow, can choose to increase the base. Great, that doesn't, we update this and we can move forward from that. The board could decide to do any number of other things. And I'll talk about some of the other things that are still on the table after you go through this, but the board would need to approve this new teacher only pay scale. And what that also does then is it separates out, it doesn't negatively impact anybody's current salary where they are. So if they already got the 1.5%, like they already have that, like all of that is already in place. This just allows a mechanism to clearly say we are bringing in that teacher retention allotment and applying it exactly as the legislature says we need to apply that. So
I just want to clarify one real quick. So
yes,
let's say they have a schedule, they pull students, they're the teacher. At like the elementary special education inclusion, they just go in, but if they pull them from resource, so they then have them in their room, that would be considered.
yes. It also depends on, even an inclusion teacher may actually be coded, because if they're coded as like a co-teacher, then they could actually be counted for that. And so those are some of the things we've got about 4 or 5 specific instances that we're going to ask for clarification. Because what I want to do, since the state is paying us directly, I want everybody to get it that can. Everybody we can count credit for that. I want to count everybody credit. What I don't want to have is us submit somebody and take that $4,000 to $8,000 cost, because we have to pay it up front. We don't get reimbursed until after snapshot date happens at the end of October. Then it will come back to us in the spring. So I just want to make sure that everybody I can get credited, because it's coming straight to us. It's in the funding. Like, I want everybody to get all the money that we can possibly get for that one. So if I can, by any stretch, say, yes, this is a teacher, we're going to call them a teacher. But I think right now that's the only one. So there's some inclusion, there's some dual credit monitoring, there's a couple of other situations that are just a little like different. It's not so clear. And so we're going to look for guidance and make sure that we're clear before we submit that. Anybody that is on a question mark, we're going to reach out to them and say, hey, like, we had a question, we got clarification, you're on this scale. We had a question, we got clarification. Unfortunately, you're not going to count. And that's going to be really guidance from TEA and the guidelines for that. Okay. Yes.
So are you going to clarify why the SPED receive a special ed teachers?
So our special education teachers have not been on the special education, on the stipend list. However, in the things that the board has considered as asked to be on there, special education stipends is one of the things on the board.
Did I overlook it on this sheet?
It does not exist right now.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But it makes.
But I
sense to
thought
me
we were gonna adopt
if
this.
If we just approved, what was it, $1,100 additional dollars to those two teachers, it's going back to the day. That was part of the consent agenda, right?
Mhm.
Was that
Oh.
400 for one, 700 for another? or
Yes,
something?
that is because of overload. We have hired that position now. So we have filled that position. So it was initially like, we have to ask for this much for the whole year. We were able to fill it mostly, but we had to go another position. We had to go from a teacher to a TA. So they can't case manage. So that's where that money came from. So yes, this, in the things that we want to ask for, should funding be available, special education stipends is one of the things that's on the list, as are elementary math science stipends. So elementary teachers that teach math science, they don't get the math science stipend that 5th through 12th grade does. As are other things like retention stipend, professional development grant increases, additional TAs for the elementary, recruitment stipends, a grant writer, raising the base salary, half-year retention checks, hourly staff holidays, club and organization stipends, after school free for all employees, increasing the insurance contribution.
I was just asking clarification because it's not listed and we vote on this.
It is not listed because it's not currently offered. I'm not bringing it to you to ask for the additional expense.
Like, are you saying if we're be voting on it, shouldn't it be on?
Thank you.
We have
Right,
not,
okay,
so that
okay.
is in
Yeah.
the bucket of funds that are dependent on what the state final numbers are. So that's our next item on the agenda. And ongoing conversations over the next 2 months. So this vote is just for the document as you see it,
And at this point,
because we don't have the final numbers yet to allot for that stipend, if that's what the board chooses to do. So,
at this point, what I put before you is, these are all the existing things that we already offer in these rows. And the change is adding this teacher retention allotment as is legally required. And here's what the total for that is. Now, these are all the things when the board looks at our finances, once they get to us, that the board will then consider and adjust. We can always update this if the board comes back and says yes on these. This can be updated at that time.
does that make sense?
It does.
This doesn't cost us, this doesn't cost us any money.
Hold on.
Yeah, so I just want to say, this doesn't cost us any money because it's a direct flow through from the state.
Well, I thought you said it doesn't come back to you until the spring. You take it out of your budget now,
So-
it should be back later.
It's a cash flow, but it's not added to it's an offset of the total budget. The money comes, we spend the money early and then the money comes back to us. So it's net zero because it's a direct pass through. There's just a time delay between those. These things all cost money in the budget. So my suggestion to you right now is do what's legally required here. Be prepared, hopefully, when we run through budget, we will have enough you guys can prioritize and make some of these decisions once we actually know what funding looks like for those. Did that answer your question? You still have concerns? Okay, that's okay.
So we don't.
It's good.
Go ahead. Oh,
Ask all the questions.
so we won't know about those additional funds till October or September.
So the second week in September, I believe, is the date when we submit our first 6 weeks attendance to TEA. They approve it. They run their numbers. They resubmit they represent the Foundation Schools program, which is our funding model. But the one I ran, matter of fact, I brought it with me just in case you want to see it. I'm kind of mixing two agenda items a little bit together, but the one that I ran today, for instance, it doesn't have the facilities funding, which if we don't have facilities funding, we have basically no new money that we can do anything to work with. And so it's not even in there yet in the last run that they had. Also, our enrollment is not as high as it should be. So I think we're going to get some added revenue because our enrollment is going to go up whenever we submit for that 6 week attendance. So
this vote is for that teacher retention allotment column, basically.
and the total compensation. This is all the same as exactly what it is right now.
So if I just to help me understand how to read this. So let's say I come in to Rapoport, 5-year teacher.
You've completed year 5
Yes.
and you're coming in starting year 6.
So then that would put my salary at the 55 or the 56 or 50.
You would be at 55 to 45. Yeah. Because the years of experience is years of experience completed. not started. So you have completed year 5 because it starts at year 0. So you've completed year 5. So that's your starting salary.
Is there a motion?
Move, we approve the pay scale.
Second. Who seconded?
Mine. Okay. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The teacher pay scale passes as is. Anything else you want to say about the forecasting?
Just briefly. Yeah, just briefly. So I just want to remind you guys, like truth and transparency a little bit. The Foundation of Schools report is available online. So if you ever want to go and look and see where all this information is, this is the most recent report. It was August 7th was their most recent update for that one. You can go pull it for any school, any charter school. You can do statewide summaries. You can do charter statewide summaries. You can pull all that information. And it gives you 45 pages of how schools are funded. Now for charter schools, there's several gaps because we don't do taxes. So there's a bunch of zeros in all the places where taxes are in there. But when you look through this, one of the things I just want you to see. So the first couple of drafts had a lot of money because they had our enrollment like 980 kids. Okay. Recap at 950. So they've gone back and adjusted that. So now it's a little better. But they went a little lower. They went to our end of year last year and we've gone up a few students, not a massive amount, but we've gone up a few students from last year. So I just want to call out some big things. If you go and pull this report, I would strongly suggest you do, and you can look at other schools or charter schools. But right here at the very front, this top line is the number of students after they adjust for attendance. Okay. We don't get paid on the number of students. We get paid on the number of students in attendance. That is why attendance is so critically important, like to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars when kids don't attend over the course of a year that we lose because we lose funding when they don't attend. So this is number of kids in attendance. And then this down here is number of weighted kids. So kids that are underneath the special education umbrella are worth more in the formula funding. High school kids, because their classes are more expensive, right? They're worth more in this funding. So you'll see this right here. We've got 815 attendance kids, right? And then we've got 1,366 right now that they're planning, right? That's weighted. That is with all of the different extra money that kind of go to kids. Right down here, you'll see they have already increased the allotment per kid. So it's at 62.15 now. So that is accounted for in the new model. So you can see that. But again, it's based on the adjustment. Then the other three things really I want to call out. It also has the safety money. I told you guys we got additional safety money. So that money is in there. Some of it is for like district wide and some of it is campus wide. So some of that will be taken up by campus initiatives like places where we have blank spots on cameras. We'll go in there. Training for our Guardian program would come out of that space. Updates for like AEDs. For instance, we need mounted AEDs in the gym. So making sure that we've got all of the things that we need across the district for safety for that one. And then potentially coming back to you guys with a plan for armed personnel, probably a single or a part of a single across the district that makes, stops and routes, through the district. So that's where that money would come from. If we do that, that is direct funded money, meaning we can't use it for anything that doesn't fall underneath that safety umbrella. Then if you flip that summary over, it says tier 2. Tier 2 is facilities. That's where the school school facilities is for charter schools. Right now it only shows, hang on, it's got other monies in there. I'll show it to you in a minute. But then you have the total amount right here, right? So that's total funding from the state. So right now on the school facilities, let me flip it over. Yeah. So if you flip back over to the detail, if you're online, you can just click on it and it takes you here. But if you flip back over to the detail, right now, school facilities only shows $129,000. Well, that's what we had before. So it's not showing school facilities yet, which depending on the estimate we looked at should be around 280, give or take. So if I were to give you suggestions right now for how to fund those extra things that we just talked about, I would have to tell you that we don't have any money to fund those. So that is one of the reasons why I have said, we're not going to let these slip. We're going to keep bringing them up when we talk about it. But once we have enrollment set, once we have attendance set, once we get the updated FSP with all of that data, then we come to the board and we say, okay, this is really where we sit. This is what our expenses look like. This is how much it's going to cost for each of these initiatives, and bring it to the board, and the board can discuss it at that point. So I just wanted to be really clear with, this is the most recent Foundation Schools program summary that's out there. Anybody can go get them anywhere. You can look them for any school, how they spend it, how they're taxing, like any of that sort of stuff. But this is what ours looks like.
Is that website?
So it's through TEA, but if you just put TEA FSP in your search bar, it'll pull it up. And then it lets you go to reports, and you can pick FSP, Foundation School Program. Yes.
So I think that is, like, if they leave early or come back late and they didn't miss the whole day, is that included on attendance, or is the whole day missing, or how?
So officially through TEA, if they're here at attendance time, then they get credit for it.
Okay.
So we know that kids need to be here all the time. So we'll talk with families about early releases and tardies and how that impacts. It does impact truancy. So all or part of a day does impact truancy for families. And they can be taken to truancy court and held liable for not bringing their kids to school. But as far as TEA's funding is concerned, if they're here when funding is taken, when attendance is taken at that official attendance time of the day, then they get credit for those.
And the ESL is part of this official, like, get more money for ESL.
There's a weight associated with students who have ESL, who have a ESL umbrella. And I can show you that. Like, there's a line item that shows you. Basically, any kid that has any sort of label or that requires anything extra other than just regular classroom instruction. So any kid that needs extra accommodations or intervention or pull out resource, any of that sort of stuff, there'll be extra weights.
ESL, I know that by experience, many kids that they're labeled ESL, they don't get any extra. We still get that much at school.
It depends on if there's extra work or not. I can explain it in I'll show you the formula for that one. Yes, ma'am.
On the wish list, or that will come back to, that we have money. The one for after school for staff.
Yep.
I noticed when I registered my student, there was an option in there for staff. I'm assuming that's discounted. What is the discount right now?
$10 a week total.
So half of what families pay. Has there been not vote, like to see how many teachers, how many kids need to be?
No, whenever I present this to you, I'll put what the cost would be.
No, I'm asking, is it just 2 teachers and 3 kids? Or is it 4 teachers
that have asked for it or that would benefit?
that have a need for it and that would use it?
She's going to provide that when we're ready to discuss it.
Everybody would use it because we would provide it or not.
He's right now asking like how many teachers currently use it that would need it.
Define need.
But I think our ask, she's going to provide us those answers, because we're going to be weighing these different programs, these different options, and we will have the dollar amount assigned to it to be able to make that decision.
I wasn't asking about dollars. I was just trying to see what the amount of teachers and children that would be benefiting from it, who would actually use it. Because if it's just 1 teacher and 1 student, is it?
I see what you're saying. So the ask is that we would provide it for all staff who use after school care or who want to use after school care would get it for free, regardless of need, like financial need. The need would be, I need you to stay at Rapoport, therefore I'm going to provide you like free after school care. So now I do know that
That's what I'm asking.
how many would we increase the usage of it would be the question. So I think the important thing to note is that we would still need to supplement the after school care caregivers for that. And that's where the cost would come.
I have a question on the attendance item, that very first line item. It's called.
Yeah, ADA, average daily attendance.
Yes. So is that only looked at once a year?
No, for charter schools, it's every 6 weeks. It's refined. So every 6 weeks we resubmit and we refine. That's why if you actually go through those FSP reports, you'll see that they're updated fairly often. And so when we resubmit, then they update and it's averaged out for the year. So every time we submit, charter schools get a new report and our payments go up and down depending on what we submit.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. If
Mhm.
it's looked at more often, does it change and then change? Yeah.
Yeah. It changes. It changes. Now, what I've been told is once they get the beginning of the year all worked out and settled, then the only thing that will change will be our weights, what we input at the beginning. But the formulas would stay the same, just what we input at the beginning will adjust. And then at the end of the year, if they paid you more, then you owe them back money. Like if your attendance is really high and then it falls all the way off and they've already given you money, too much money for the average, then you have to pay them back. Or likewise, if you get to the end of the year and they haven't paid you enough, then they'll settle up and give you extra money, but it's not till the next year. That's also good. You can look at previous years too. So you can look back 5 years, you can look before COVID, you can look years. So I am happy if anybody ever wants to sit down and go through that, I'm happy to schedule coffee, lunch, whatever, and walk through as much detail as you want to walk through on those.
That was just a discretionary item.
Yes.
That was just discussion.
Okay, state accountability.
So I sent out to the board the state accountability summary. It's available online now. It went public on Friday. You've probably seen news reports on that. I also provided 2 other documents. One of them was just, Angie actually went through and pulled comparisons for other schools in our area. Schools we frequently talk about are schools that we have a lot of kids that attend here that live in those districts. So you guys can see kind of comparisons against other schools. And then we also gave you that report that we give you fairly often, which is kind of a year by year glance. And so we divided that out based on 23, 24, 25. Remember in 23, we had the big accountability refresh and we had the actual assessment refresh. So that was in 23 where you can see there. And so you can see either by level, so by different category of accountability, or by campus. That's how they're divided out. Same data, just this is how we are overall, this is how we are in achievement for each of those, or this is how elementary has been, middle school, high school, and then overall as a district. Some things I want to point out is used to a small school district, how goes the high school, so goes the district. That's where we were for years and years and years. And our high school has always been really strong because they get to count graduation rate and college career military readiness. That makes big difference in how they're scored at the high school. With the rewrite, it's by weight of the campus. And so right here on that form that I shared with you guys right here, you can see the weights of each campus and how the weights of that campus's score impact the score of the district. So if you look on there, elementary score is 20.8% of the district score. Middle schools is 42.4% of the district score. And then high school is 36.8. So that just gives you an idea. We have more tests at middle school. So when middle school struggles, so will the district, even though high school has done really well. That's where we are. The other thing I did is I coded them like reds and greens. So you can see, for instance, at the high school, they're already an A, even though they're kind of bumping around up and down in some areas across the board, except for, I think it was academic growth. It's hard to get growth when you're already an A, right? But you can still get growth, but it's hard to get growth when you're already an A. So you can see they're already an A right there. You can see elementary, right? We were doing really well pre-COVID, and then we went way down COVID, and then we went up and then down, and then you can see some pretty significant growth when you're looking at the low scores. Are we where we want to be? Absolutely not. That's what I think I said in the email to you guys, but you can see they improved in every single area this last year as we move through that. That's also where you see some of the TSL work that we've done. It's in the academic accountability, the academic strategic plan that we've talked about, and it's also in the new curriculum that we're bringing in for the English language arts at elementary. So Jennifer's going to talk about that next month. And then Tyler's going to talk about middle school. And even a little bit of like CCMR stuff and graduation rate at the high school, but he's going to spend a lot of time next month talking about middle school, where we are, how we got there, what we're doing, what we're switching, changing, moving, strengthening as we move forward. So in September, you'll receive reports from both Jennifer and Tyler specifically for their campus accountability, impact changes, and what we're doing with that. Yes.
Is it safe to ask or present that regardless of what the accountability ratings are, students are graduating, they are passing their classes, and they are going on to either work-based industries, college, and military success.
Absolutely.
So not to look at it go, I don't want my child to go to this school, but it's just more, that's just a snapshot of this day.
Correct.
So.
So I stand up and clap for you now? Yes.
So Quinn would be a result of elementary COVID kids.
Yes. So my kiddos in 7th grade had kindergarten COVID. So if that gives you an idea. So high school is just starting to see kind of early level COVID kids. Middle school is seeing those COVID kids move through. And we're having to change the way that we interact with the kids, the way that we engage with them, the way that we pull them into content. Elementary testing is just now starting to see kids that have had solid foundations all the way up through that. So we're really excited about things that are coming up at elementary as we're walking through that. We just expect growth and growth and growth moving forward from that. I also think it's interesting if you go to the other document that has the comparisons against other districts, if you were to look in McLennan County and if you were to list schools by economic disadvantage percentages before you looked at accountability, you could almost overlay those two lists together. So it would be almost the same order, one versus the other universally. Now, again, we fare really well in some areas, and we've seen growth in some areas as well. So like I said, so not where we want to be yet. We've seen some growth in some areas. We've seen a little bit of stumbling in some areas. One of the things I will tell you is when Tyler and I were talking about it at Quinn specifically, we were very worried. I talked with you guys about it during the year, teacher retention, right? We had new teachers, we had stumbling teachers, we had vacancies that we weren't able to fill. And I think we see those results definitely in students, not universally, but you definitely see those pockets where not having an experienced high quality teacher directly impacts the experience of the students in the classroom. So again, you'll hear more from Tyler and Jennifer next month as they come and talk about it. Any questions? I'm open.
Okay. We'll move on to gym updates.
Okay, so just some quick run throughs. So Chris Mason sent an update to Ms. Menifee today with kind of final plans for the panels that they don't have the wording on them yet. So I didn't bring them to you tonight because they don't have the wording for you guys to actually look through. So just keep a watch on your email. We'll send them through. It'll go to actually the facilities committee to do the reviewing and editing and questioning for that. And then once the facilities committee is comfortable with that, then it will come to the board to make sure that we're all good for what that looks like on that history wall piece for that. One of the things that, so right now what's on there is there's like an East Waco history panel. There's a Rapoport history panel. There's a Paul Quinn history panel. And then there's like a future panel. And I know that the board had talked about being like a pre-settlement kind of thing, like with the Waco Indians, like that sort maybe being on there. So we'll kind of work with them on that. But facilities committee will take that and give like first review to make sure the verbiage is there and the panels are there and all of that before it officially comes to the board for approval as we move forward from that. But he's got a whole stack of pictures and he's got tentative designs for the panels. So we're really excited to be able to kind of move through and get that to the committee.
Does what you've seen so far show a clear representation of what the student body looks like?
There's no like future on that. Like the panel that's current for Rapoport Academy is our founder, and it talks about the school, how it was named, how it was created. And there's like some like background pictures for that one. But that's where I really want the committee to really dig in and make sure that those panels, because they're very different panels, that the photos and the representations of the panels for the different phases reflect that phase and what it should look like.
I just want to make sure that it's as diverse and unique as possible. Because when you look at the district, there's every walk of life.
Okay, the other one, so just a couple of heads ups. Brian has been working a lot on cashless operations and concession stand stuff. So concession stands are going to be hosted by student clubs, student groups, other teams. So he's got like a rotation of people and they're signing up, and he's going to make sure that the product is in there so that they can sell those. Chris Brownlee is working on a point of sale system. So we can do a cashless operation, fully cashless operation at the concession stand. And then tickets are also online now. So we'll have a ticket reader at the front. There'll be a scanner on the window. So you can walk up and like scan a QR code, access straight to our athletics website. You can go buy your ticket there and come in and scan your ticket as you go in. The goal is to have no cash exchanging hands in that facility for any reason. It makes it a lot safer, but it also makes it a lot cleaner. So anyway, so we're really excited to test it out Tuesday. Yeah, okay, good. It's live Tuesday then. So anyway, we're really excited to test it out. We have the equipment here already. And so it's just a matter of on the concession stand, putting in the items and the costs and that sort of stuff. The cool thing I think is he's worked it out with them so that the cost of the product gets covered, and then athletics gets part of the proceeds, and then the club that actually runs it gets part of the proceeds for running it that night. It's not any prepared food, so nothing can go into the gym, and there's no like hot food prepared. It's all chips and candy and snack bags and, you know, drinks with lids and that sort of stuff. So we're really excited to have our own concession stand and to be cashless. Yes.
You advertise so the community isn't coming in, well, I only have cash and they can't get it, they want.
Yes.
Somewhere.
I think that's one of the things that Brian and SJ has worked on. So she's got social media posts and she's got scans that are branded so that she can post them up on the wall. When I walked into her office, she had them up on her screen and was working through stuff, and the website. I think there's a big social media push to try to do it before they get there. So it's on our website and it's communicated out and families get it, and it's going to go on Parent Square and all of that. Handicap parking, you mentioned that earlier. So we're kind of looking at it in like two stages. So on the side of the building now, there's a ramp at the bottom. So there's the ramp that goes in the front, and then on the side, there's been a ramp installed. So on game days, we've got some called bollards, but anyway, but they say handicap on it. And so we'll set those out and we'll prop that side gate open. So there'll be 2 spots over on the side, and then we're adding a 3rd spot up the top. So it'll be 3 up top and I think 2 on the side. And we'll just see if we go a game or 2 and we're like, that's not nearly enough. We can buy more of those and we can designate more spots. One of the concerns was if we paint a bunch of spots, then they're no longer accessible for other campus activities like parent conferences or things like that. And they're in the wrong spot for what we would need them for our other campuses, for our other campus activities. So I think we just need to watch it and see if that's enough, or to see if we need to add more. Do we need to add more to the front? Do we need to add more to the side? What does that look like? So at least we have some expansion for that, but I think we just need to keep a watch and see what that looks like to see if that satisfies what we need, or if we need to bring more out on game days and put them back up.
So those could be not designated, and it's allowed.
So you have your formal one that meets code. So the 2 up front are the ones that are formal that meet code. You can temporarily create spots. The recognition is that they're probably not van accessible. So if you have somebody that needs to roll up and lay out a van and use that, they're not van accessible, but we can at least designate, we can reserve spots at any time. So the 2 up front are the ones that are official, that meet code, that are painted in wide.
I've heard concerns that the ramp might be slick. Has anyone brought this up, or can we revisit that with facilities?
Sure.
If
I can check and
it's
see.
rainy, it's real slick.
Okay.
And then,
we can put like, probably like sticky tape to
yeah.
give it traction tape. Okay.
And then, this is anecdotal, but I parked on the side for the ribbon cutting, and it just was very like, I ended up having to move my car because it's just not,
It wasn't even
there's
open.
right.
Yeah.
And I know it
Yeah.
will be, but just being aware of that, it looks like, yeah, the gate was closed. There's no, there's no signage. So perhaps we can, I don't know, make it look intentional,
Yeah.
and then
But we can
revisit if
signage that
necessary.
says front entrance through the gate, like something like that.
And then maybe entertain feedback as people start using it. We have events and games and if you're hearing other things, we can continue to discuss.
Did that get communicated as like visitor parking, or is that anybody parks in that side lot? Is that where bus parking is, or is that open day? I was gonna be careful on the signs. Like if you wanted to say visitor sign, then you can. I'll get with SJ on signage.
Thank you.
Then I think next measure's signatory order.
So in terms of signing contracts to reserve the gym, historically, or our current policy is Dr. Newman is the sole signer for any contract that the school organization enters into. And wanted you to speak to your availability and what that process looks like in the event that a contract, if you're not around, like how are you going to address that?
Sure. So it's a whole new process for us. So Brian worked on a contract over the summer and we gave to legal counsel, and legal counsel was like, no, we want you to use this one. And it's like the really complicated thing. Lawyers make things so complicated sometimes. Anyway, so we have the contract, in talking with Tyler a little bit. We want to make sure that the AD has full ability to talk to people, build the relationships, plan, double check events, check with the facilities team to make sure that that space is ready and they've got staff to be able to support that and all of that. The question was really put forth to me. It was like, can the AD or the principal also be contract signers? And my response back to that is maybe in time, but right now, no. So the board really is the contract authority, and they have one employee, that's the superintendent. They have granted me the ability to sign into contracts on behalf of the district. I hold contract authority, and I haven't really relinquished that unless it's in writing for a specific purpose. So what that looks like right now is maybe I'm in Austin and I can't put my ink on a signature for that. I can send a text message with a screenshot with formal approval to Karen. She has a stamp. She can stamp it. She can take a copy of that screenshot and attach it with that document so that we have the documentation for that. Or I can send an email and she prints out the email. She'll put it with that. And then that provides documentation and she can stamp it. So if something were to happen, and there needs to be a rapid turnaround and I am literally unavailable, we can do it through text message approval that can be printed out. We can do it through email approval that can be printed out. Or if for some reason, like it's a planned departure, so meaning, hey, I'm out of the country, I am unavailable and I'm not going to be reachable for 5 days, then I can provide temporary designation authority for that exact period of time, should that happen. Now, my hope is that we don't find ourselves in a 24-hour turnaround to try to get a contract done to rent the facility. But if we do, if I'm not available in person, then I'm available by text message and we can get that signed off on that way, or I'm available through email, we can get that signed off on that way, or we have pre-planned. And there's essentially like a superintendent in standing if I'm not available for that. So that's the current plan. I mean, I can revise that if it becomes a problem, if there's way more contracts that have like really rapid turnarounds that we need to meet for that. But at this point, I've maintained contract authority. That is my expectation, is for me to be the one that just signs the final contracts for things. I sign Region 12s, I sign our special ed contracts, I sign our legal contracts, like all of that sort of stuff. And so while we're figuring this out, it's a whole new process anyway. I want to hold on to that contract for that. Again, once we get into this and we realize it's not a big deal and we're working, we can only lease out to 501c3s. So if we're, renting out and all that's good and we have standing relationships and we're like, okay, this really isn't a big deal, it's not causing us any problems, and that's something we want to flex with down the road, I would bring it back to you guys and let you know that. But at this point, you have given that to me, and I'm holding on to that as we move through. Yes.
Do you have examples of times where something like this came up and you weren't available and there was a waiting period until you were available, where you would probably need someone in lieu of you not being there?
I mean, I've used email and text messages several times in order to make sure that a contract met the deadlines for that. Ms. Fuller has called me and said, hey, I forgot about this contract and now I need to get it done and it's due back to them tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm in Austin at a meeting. Let me send you an email with documentation. I'll copy Karen Davila on it. She's got my stamp. You can get it over there. And they were able to go and get it stamped without a problem. So there's been times where I haven't been physically available, but we were able to meet the deadline for that amount of time.
It's like what's
Leasing the facility. An outside agency wants to use it for a fundraiser basketball tournament, right? Whatever. Then they can use it. They can lease it from us for the amount of fee that's charged on the contract, and then they can use the facility.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you say we could only rent to 501c3s.
So at this point, legal counsel has said, without incurring a whole lot of stuff, 501c3s, because we're a 501c3 and as a charter. Now, if it becomes like a thing, we'd have to create a separate entity from what I understand from them. And their response was, you'd have to create a separate entity. It could impact your charter because our charter only exists to run this school. So the 501c3 that we have, East Waco Innovative School Development, only exists to run DBA Rapoport Academy. And so they said, we might be able to move into that, but he said on the phone, only go to 501c3s, period. That's what you need to do right now, 501c3s.
Actually operating as a business, so business is not.
Do we expect to bring this out a lot? Is that the expectation?
Yes.
I mean, that's our goal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the goal is to have all the community in here at all the time and to help increase the revenue for the facility, to pay for the maintenance and operations of the facility, and to make it a community space. Of course, students first, right? And then to grow it from that. So
We entertained the AD, like was being a two-step approval. There's like a soft approval presented by the AD. He's reviewed everything, had the meeting with whoever in case of your absence. And then he emails whatever needs to go in with the attachment saying, this is the first line approval. That's the AD, pending approval by the superintendent. That way, at least someone has already had eyes on it in case they can't get available.
I would not approve it without his approval and his approval.
Okay, so there will be two steps.
So yeah, the gym is a high school facility and it's an athletic facility. So I'm pointing over there. So Tyler can't just decide to rent out the facility without having conversations with our AD. Okay. Our AD also needs to have conversations with our principal before renting out the facility. So they're not on the legal lease. I'm the only one that's the contract authority on the lease. But they would essentially, Brian or Tyler would send me the email and say, hey, here's the contract. We've already talked with this company. Here's what we've worked out. We've already checked it in with the facilities team. Like all the details have been worked out. Newman, we need your signature. And I'll say, great, all the details have been worked out. Everything else, I'll check, make sure they're 501c3, sign it, send it back to them.
And lastly, I'll just say, when I was investigating this issue, there's no precedent for so Dr. Newman signs all contracts as per her role, her described role. So there's no instance of exceptions to that. So it's fairly iron tight. What I determined.
Agreement from the lawyer.
Do what?
We are going to use the agreement from.
Yes. Yeah. It's way more complicated. Brian had worked out like a really nice, simple one. And it's not. Yeah. It's not anymore, but it's pretty straightforward. But that's funny. But anyway, yes. So we are using the agreement from the lawyers, following the legal advice from the lawyer. And if it gets to the point where, there is a large need for non-501c3s, then the board would need to have those conversations with that. That is not something, I hope we fill it up with nonprofit community groups and organizations. And I know that our team, the high school team, the athletics team, I know that they're going to take really good care of the facility and protect floors. Like they're not going to let people come use the space that are going to damage the facility. So if he says it's good and he says it's good and I check the 501c3 and they've said they've checked with the facilities team, then great, let's use it.
How money goes where?
That money will go back in to cover the operations of the facilities, which means whoever's working the event, whoever's the admin on duty for the event, like they'll have to get paid for being in that space. And then if there's extra money that's left over, my recommendation is that that would go towards the athletics activities in that facility. Mhm.
Space.
Mhm. Assuming there's money left over from that, but I think $75 an hour was what they suggested as an average rate for that. So that doesn't,
Very
yeah,
generous.
it doesn't cover a lot of maintenance and overhead for that. Yeah, but we also want to keep it open for, we want to keep it open for nonprofits, right? Like, so we want it accessible for that.
So what prompted the discussion on the signatory? Was there anything in?
Just with the opening of the gym,
Got
and we
it.
needed to
All right.
finalize how it's gonna, the procedures.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. She's like, ah, what? All right, I'd like to move into a brief closed session.
Actually, it can't be closed session.
No, it can't. Oh,
Yeah.
he told me it was. Okay, great. Or, I mean,
Alright.
great. So hopefully you guys,
This one's the one for you. Yep.
he told me closed, but
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, he
okay,
qualified back with me.
Okay.
But also clarified that there's no issue.
yeah, right. So hopefully you had a chance to read Ms. Hill's letter. I spoke with general counsel. He says it's not a legal issue. We're just to advise Ms. Hill that if anything comes up that could be a conflict of interest, so student recruitment, or if we have enrollment strategies, things like that, that you can't share that with your spouse. Or something, and likewise the other way, right? If he has an issue, something that would happen in either direction. Any concerns or questions? And I think that that would be adequate for us to just make that clear and on the record with her.
Well, if there ever is a time in case I just don't know something that you can at least let me know if I need to abstain from a vote. Does that make sense?
Excellent.
I would just like to say, I really appreciate you even being concerned about.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
Because I think some people wouldn't have ever even mentioned it. And so for you just to double check it, I just really appreciate the openness, right? The transparency to say, I just want to make sure that everything is really clear. So I appreciate that very much. Okay, break, dinner, over there.
We vote.
No.
There's you start.
It did not need a vote. That was only if the board needed to take action.
Oh,
So if the board needed to take action, for instance, to say, yes, this is a conflict of interest, we have to terminate your spot on the board. Otherwise,
Sorry.
otherwise what'll be recorded is no action taken. Okay, can we have a quick break? Okay, I'm gonna get dinner set up over here. We'll be back in 5.
No, I do and check, but I don't sign in her place. I mean, I am a signatory, but I do use the checks.
That was,
Yeah.
It really did. I love it. I know that, and I love Alex. No, I'm not done. Like, I was trying to get all the points. Like your energy when it's.
Your legal bag.
another award, I think.
I saw something on it too.
That's the place.
And I love
It was in the show the other day.
Sometime last week, but very far on time. You, I'm saying, it was some, you know how you go to the string site at the very bottom, and they have like the section of like 1, 2, 3, 4.
We're not doing anything down.
We were there.
Yeah,
Thank you. It was you and someone else.
It was another accolade. Talk about a trophy.
Well,
My question is back here to the meeting. If you're not in a public office, what's the conflict of interest with the board meeting?
I'm going to Temple.
Something to
Harvest Learning. So I'm
Yeah.
hay bale.
But you know, I thought that the most appropriate thing was not.
And just
Or y'all shoot that hay bale at the new crowd totally around.
I didn't know anything about the pumpkin patch till y'all went.
Yeah, he's right. You need to take a seat.
But I want to run it.
That's how they pay for the
The $10,000 was kind of telling.
There, well, that's right.
Grady, hello. I feel betrayed. You know how I'm about.
I know.
It's okay.
Like, I don't know you in actual paper.
I know. No.
It looks like there's.
We're gonna have a great scene next place.
I think they're good.
Um,
Oh, does she have it?
Nail her for the night.
It's so good.
I'm well.
Oh, good. Oh, good luck.
Yes.
Thank you.
I.
That actually.
I will, they're way better. That calendar.
They're at Ligo. They were in Montessori until they were 4. Montessori is great, because maybe like it's not so great, more bigger. At least for mine, they need to be like. Pre-K and
Not also need free range.
So I remember.
I remember
I'm like, shit, Montessori, they get like choose what they. You always just like take couples. I'm like, could you please teach my child to read?
Yeah. I'm done.
After first world problems, babe.
Right.
First world.
That's what she told us.
Yes.
Grad students.
I'm so excited. My oldest son, it's not, I'm not saying that, but she was like, I'm going. All right. Our day was not. My.
Where you get to teach. Like, I could get off like this much.
Not sure the school, the actual.
Oh,
That's like fairly much. I think they would really are worth the risk.
There was a lot of us glad we were exempt.
That's still,
But-
actually, it's whether 10%.
it's just
We're exempt, honestly, I mean.
baffling. when
Yeah.
you Think of all the need and some of the things that are taking up their attention.
Yeah. I think I saw Lorena, someone donated 10 Commandments to them. Mhm. So I was like, oh no, they gotta place them up in,
It seems like it's a matter of time.
yeah, some political action group here in town, I think. So I was like,
They
oh.
can't file a lawsuit. Like claiming that this is unconstitutional, the law is actually effective.
No.
And so my guess is September 1 hits, we're gonna have all these lawsuits filed. Probably prevent the law.
That makes sense.
And then the courts will probably issue an injunction, and then we'll all have to come back and September and like redo it. That's my guess at least. About what's gonna happen, and then it'll.
That's why I'm like,
years.
we really have to do this now. It seems odd, it's just September 1st. Something.
Yeah, just been.
Yes.
That's what.
Because they actually lied. Yes, they either are co-teachers. Or they lied. Those were.
Yeah. Open our doors, come on, each club. Always have stuff. Yeah.
I am.
I love
Okay, time is it?
Like a 2, well, it's probably similar.
You
Did something. Yeah, yeah.
Any plasticware anywhere? Like if somebody doesn't want to use a carb-loaded chip, it's okay.
Certainly.
Or if someone doesn't want to eat the tortilla.
Yeah.
Scoop it out.
Who wouldn't want to eat chip?
Oh, not eating the chip. They can't scoop it, the chip.
Spoons. I think spoons.
Shirt size.
Small.
Shirt size.
No.
Extra small, right? That's it. Extra small. That's how you write extra small. Okay, good, yes.
Okay, so I asked her, I'm financial signatory, so if something happened to Alexis, we would appoint somebody in the interim, likely like Tyler.
Okay. Yeah. So if something were to happen, I were to be incapacitated, the board could call an emergency meeting and redesignate signatory authority, because you'd have to do that for financial institutions. But I would like, if I'm out of country in Hawaii, right? And I'm like, I'm unavailable, like I'm leaving my work phone behind, then I need an acting superintendent in charge. And I would run that past the board with approval before I would do that. So the board would actually have a chance to. In talking with Tyler about that a little bit, he's like, if we require a 24-hour turnaround on a contract with the sheriff, I think it's done something wrong. Because like, we obviously have not planned well, have not managed it well, have not whatever, like, there's no effort. So ready to go. The facility's going to be ready to go in less than 24 hours.
Weren't there instances of that last season where school is like the last minute, it's like for whatever reason, oh, the AC went out or something like that, and y'all host it instead?
I feel like.
Oh, like if that, so that this isn't
That would be
for
different.
athletics. This is for like special events, like they want to do a job fair.
Got it, okay.
Can we use your facility for a job fair? Yes. Can we use your facility for a tournament on Saturday?
Yeah.
Yes, like that's what this is for. We do not have to do contracts for any athletic activity that is our student related. Now, if Waco ISD wanted to host their own something here, and we're not involved in it, then we would go contract with them and we stop.
You were the one who said you.
Yeah, you know it.
Hey, does anybody need a pickle? Pickle?
Does anybody else need a spoon?
Oh,
Oh, fight
okay.
over it. Should have made some arm wrestle. Should have tackled him, right?
I would not arm wrestle Alex Howard. No way, no how. She is feisty, no. No, just in the next 2 weeks, in the next week. That would be amazing. Yes. No, not today, not today.
Okay, Dr. Newman, Emily.
We're back.
Welcome. It's good to see you all again. I just saw you last month, and then I'll slip out when I'm done. And these two are going to take you into your big project that you guys are going to be working with them on. Well, I guess it'll the next 5 months or so. So we are completing, first of all, the evaluating and improving student outcomes training. Some of you probably been through this training. You're getting the abbreviated version. It's a 3-hour training on your role in improving student outcomes. But I've been challenged to make it in less than an hour. You have superintendents sometimes.
Welcome.
Yeah.
I did help you out by going over the accountability in depth.
And I was gonna say,
So-
when we get to that, I feel like we can just kind of skip through that part because she already went through that. We do have a superintendent in our region who said, I need the 1-hour version of anything and everything. That last time I think we were back in the car in 57 minutes. So, that was kind of a kudo for us. All right. Evaluating and improving student outcomes, your role as trustees. None of you in this room, other than Alex, for example, is going to go down the hall and teach 5th grade math. That is not your role as trustees.
Everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
Everyone is welcome.
Please come teach 5th grade math.
But we're gonna talk tonight about oversight and what your role is as a trustee. Now, these pieces or components or what we call pillars right here do not necessarily apply to charter school boards, but they are very important. Those are the 5 areas that school board members individually and collectively should attempt to grow and improve and get better upon. That said, just because it says it doesn't apply to charters does not mean this is not important to you all. So these 5 areas, like setting a vision and goal, you do that. That is really important for your district. Having ways to monitor progress and accountability. Having systems and processes in place, like I hear you talking about at your meetings. Making sure that you are advocating for your school and having engagement with the community and finding the synergy and teamwork that you all have together. Again, not necessarily for charters, but I think it's good information for you to be aware of. There is a framework. You can actually Google it. It's a 4-page document. And you can use that with regular IC school boards every year. So our pieces that we're going to look at tonight are AF accountability. Again, she already gave you quite a bit of that information. We're going to talk about the STAR test and the TEKS, and then finally wrap it up with effective board practices. I was with the board last night, and we spent more time on this section right here, just because I feel like that is so important. The other piece is you all have conversation with your administrators at your meetings all the time anyway. So I'm gonna let you just read this side right here to yourself, and somebody kind of summarize, what is this saying your role is? What's your job as trustees?
You're the governing body.
Governing body, what does it need to cover? You tell me more than
Should point that, should provide oversight.
oversight. What is oversight?
I'll look into review discussion.
What's the opposite of oversight?
Negligence.
Negligence. Not being aware. What's another opposite of oversight?
Micromanage.
Micromanaging. Now look at these 2 people right here. They're boots on the ground every day. So it's kind of the opposite of that, boots on the ground. They're here doing work every day. You're not here every day. That's not your job as school board member. So this is a graphic just showing those components or pillars that were on that framework earlier. And you'll see on the left-hand side who has to work together.
The board and the superintendent.
And that work collaboratively. And we're going to skip the stuff in the middle, but on the other side over there, if you all work together and these pieces happen, you're going to have improved student outcomes. And those are some of the chunks that are on that first screen over there. Having systems and processes in place, advocating with your school community or for your school community, engaging with the greater community that we're in, setting vision and goals, knowing what you value and monitoring the progress. So those components, what we refer to as pillars, are really critical in you all, your leadership role as school board members. So there's a question for you. What do you want your educational system to produce? What do you want Rapoport Academy to produce? What matters to you?
Academic achievement.
You want high academic achievement, high academic achievement?
Yes.
High academic achievement, what else?
Future leaders
Future leaders, where?
in our community.
In our community, what else? What do you want your system to produce?
High performing students.
High performing students. No graduates, nobody said that. Last night, no graduates said, oh, we didn't say that. Engaged citizens in the society. These are kind of buzzwords for many, many years now. But how do you know if they're engaged? How do you know if they're going to be members of society? How would you know that? You can see these kids out in the community doing things.
Yeah.
We run into them from time to time. This morning, we had a speaker from the LEAD program, and some of you may be involved with that here in Waco. And the lady making the presentation talked about students that actually been through the program, being mentored, have now come back and are serving as mentees to students in our area high school. So I thought that's really encouraging. How do we know our system is producing productive and engaged graduates? How do we know that?
Stay in touch with them.
You stay in touch. And I know that's a challenge sometimes, especially for our high school counselors and principals. We talk about how do we continue to track those students to see what they're doing. How do we know that you're producing productive, engaged graduates? No right or wrong answer.
But I know the district does an alumni luncheon every year.
Okay.
With them not that engaged with them.
Are they more not likely to bring them back in?
We keep a percentage of faculty and staff that are former students.
How do we know that this is about you as a board, not your. How do we know that you as a board are playing a strategic role in that process? First of all, what's the word strategic mean? You'll be working on strategic planning, outlining plans, being intentional. So how do we know? Like when you come to your meetings, can you think of things that you all do and have conversation around that says you're strategic and you're making sure that this is happening?
Was that you asked the superintendent or campus leaders based on the strategic plan, actions that they've completed, the status of it, is it completed, is it still in the works, timelines?
Well, we got the document several months ago. We looked at y'all's plan. It's like check. Wow, so much has been checked off. Obviously, it was time to revisit and see what we're needing for that. So this is kind of a big push since about 2015, pursuing our vision for Texas students. So here was the statement that was really important to the Higher Education Coordinating Board. By 2030, at least 60% of Texans will have some kind of a degree, a certificate, a license, some kind of post-secondary credential. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you the 60% goal. We're getting close to 2030. And look at where we are. And these numbers to me are a little fuzzy because they say 2019 data is in pink, which that's not even over there. The most recent prior year available is light blue. The most recent year available is that darker blue. Now we've come through COVID. This slide deck is a year old. So their data is probably running at least a year behind that. But when you look at 60%, we've only got 5 years to go. What do you notice over there?
And halfway there.
We're back, yeah, it looks like we're only about halfway there. So if we're coming from about 2015, 2016 school year, we've been 10 years roughly. We've only got 5 more to go. What do you notice about some of this other data? And I know those are small, but you can see a third reading in math, 8th reading in math. College, career, military readiness. I know that's a big push here at Rapoport. What are you noticing about these numbers?
8th grade is low.
8th grade is low. Well, they're high graduation rate, but low. The 90 sounds good, but at Rapoport, if you're only at 90, how many kids is that aren't making the across the finish?
That's 6.8.
Putting on.
And I know your administrators on campus know exactly what to do. So this is something Texas has had in place for several years, the value of making sure we provide an opportunity for the public to see how we're doing. So your ratings came out in confidence in what called TEAL, it's a secure system at TEA on Monday the 13th. Your administrators could see it. If students have access, because we were granted access, we could see it at the service center. But on Wednesday, I guess it's paid to the kids. Whoever I was watching that evening, I had all of them out there. I was talking about them earlier. But this website right here, kidschools.gov. And I'm a data nerd, so when we travel around the state, I'm always looking up the schools, and my husband hates having that conversation. But I know this is really old right here, and I think it's because of the delay in the ratings. Lawsuit that was maybe last year, and again, this slide deck is a year old. The TA typically doesn't refresh their slide decks, so oftentimes there's some information in there that should have been updated. They typically wait a year to do that. A good sign if you're interested in seeing how schools run the area.
And that's great. Like, if you want to check in, again, I know I gave you guys like a comparison document so you could easily find it. But if you want to go look at other schools, Houston schools, Dallas schools, Austin schools, like it's really easy to navigate. Check schools.gov.
All right. I have a volunteer who wants to read the words in the blue box, just a couple of sentences, but thinking about how students are performing in their monitors. You need volunteer to read for.
Good.
Our analysis reveals that pressure on schools to avoid a low performance rating led low scoring students to score significantly higher on high stakes math exam and 10th grade. These students were also more likely to accumulate significantly more math credits and to graduate from high school on time. Later in life, they were more likely to attend and graduate from a four-year college and they had a higher.
Okay, so thank you. I know some of those words are bolded, but don't just look at the bold words. Which words kind of stand out if you read those first few lines up there?
Pressure.
Pressure. Oh, the Stargate. One of my boys, he picked his hair and it went way back. Talk about high stakes, testing and pressure. I mean, that's one kind of pressure. But what other kind of pressure is there? Is pressure good? What other words? What other words do you think?
Stakes.
High stakes. You know, last night we talked about when I started teaching in 1990, we had a test called the TOS. T-A-S.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
TOS.
What it looks like. That was my high stakes testing.
You could sleep and do well on that test.
I thought it was a good teacher, but it's just. Okay, what else is standing out to you there? Avoiding what?
Avoiding low performance rating.
We don't want those ratings. So is this saying we're unnecessarily putting pressure on schools? So just kind of frame that conversation with, yeah, high stakes testing, not always the best, not always the worst. It's how do we approach that? Because when we look down here, they're talking about how these kids are more successful in life. So I think our schools do a good job, the principals, the teachers working with the upper administration to make sure we frame that, yeah, it's important. Yes, it is high stakes, but it's not just about the test. Somebody said that earlier. This wasn't the ratings on that one given day based on how those children perform on that.
But I also think it's important to note, like, when you look at that statement that's right there in front, that's been a year old, that people have used all over the state of Texas, right? They're like, yep, it's high stakes. Yep, we understand we're putting pressure. Yep, we understand that this is really hard for students. Yep, we understand it's a snapshot. And yep, we're only worried about four-year college success, right? So I just think you have to kind of take that with, this is from TEA, this is what they want. And what they want is if we prepare all students for here, then they're fine to go anywhere else, right? And again, you guys have heard me talk about the difference between this and this, right? You guys have consistently said this is not necessarily what we're worried about every day for our students. We're worried about, does every student find their goal, their pathway, and are they all successful when they graduate? Meaning if they go to the family business, we're going to equally celebrate them as if they go to Duke, right? Like, this is what we're interested in. Are they all successful when they go? That is not what TEA is saying. TEA is saying low performing schools are going to keep being low performing until we put pressure on them. And when we put pressure on them, they're going to perform well, and they're going to now magically make all of their students ready for Duke. Because this is what we're worried about.
And one of our superintendents in the region today posted on his personal Facebook, we have got to stop shaming kids that want to go to TSCC to learn something in the trenches.
Amen.
They're going to come out making.
Amen.
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Why do we assess? Why do we take all these tests? Why do we do that? Is it to stress everybody out?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we do that? Dr. Shanks, why do you do that over and over?
Learn. Want to know what people know.
We want to know what people know. A lot of times people think it's always all about the kids. But as we talked this evening, it's not just about the kids. Who should be learning from the outcome of the results of that test? Not just the kids.
The star people.
The STAR people, the Pearson people, TEA people.
Honestly, the people doing the teaching would want the data.
Yeah.
It's a fair assessment of the data.
So we're going to talk about different kinds of tests in just a second here, but we do that. We assess the prime students for learning. We want to see, are they understanding the material? We want to make sure we're doing our job as educators to make sure that they're understanding what they need to understand. But this next step cannot be skipped. Now, many years ago, when I was an administrator, I think we owned this stuff in the office. Oh, they got this stuff up there in that great file cabinet. That's where those scores are kept. Where does the data need to lie? Who needs to have it in their hands? District whoever.
The kid, the parent, the family, the teacher.
Everybody who's a stakeholder.
Excellent.
Did you say one time the village?
Village.
One of my favorite teachers who became a very successful principal, when she was teaching in another district, she had these little charts on the wall and every child colored in their little, one on the walls in the folder. But it was a little bar graph thing and those children colored in where they were in mastering that content and that material. Everybody has to be an owner of that thing. A to F. So this is really about the A to F accountability system. Will you? Yes, ma'am.
Can I get a picture of the previous slide? Thanks so much.
Let me stand here like that.
Yeah.
Put it on Facebook. All right, A to F. So that is our state accountability system. We've been in it for what, 6-7 years now. The idea, meaning, we want to continuously work toward a higher goal. Remind me what you all were. That's all the list. As a district, where were you this year? C. 24. CC. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, when you had a rating many years ago, was been what, 3?
So we've been A, B, A, D, C.
So this is just saying that within that system of A to F, we want to support, we want a culture that supports growth. And when we think about growth, who needs to grow?
Kids.
Is whoever. Teachers, who else?
Parents.
Parents, I'm pointing up here at Tyler, administrators, everybody needs to grow. If we all grow collectively, our school will grow as a whole. But notice you're going through this training too. None of you are going down there to teach 5th grade math, except maybe Alex. I forgot what you teach now, Alex.
4th grade math.
Teach 4th grade, okay.
Math.
Darn close there. So you're it has to start with the people in this room, and you have to value that. And I know you do because you're doing some strategic planning work with the Region 12 team. It is critical that all of you set that tone from the top. So when we think about competing objectives, this kind of goes back to the creation of the test. You want it to be fair for schools. So here's the A to F system. In the circle on the bottom left, we want it to be fair. In the previous system, it wasn't. You earned the grade, you got the grade. It was a big bell-shaped curve, and they chopped off the top 5%, and they chopped off the bottom %. And it was like there was no signs on the building. Before that, we had exemplary and recognized. And what was it called after that? It was just like if you met standard.
Yeah, did not meet me.
I never saw a sign on a marquee or a side of the building that said we met standard. But now in the news, we're seeing, especially on Facebook, social media, we earned an A and we're proud of our school and students and all that kind of stuff. So now we do see that now that we're in the A to F system. Going to be rigorous. So all kids, meaning all kids can learn. So we want to achieve, we want to eliminate those achievement gaps and finally be transparent. So we want the public to be able to understand it. This is hard stuff. Even the people like Allison over there that crunches these numbers, it's hard to understand some of this data and how they get to those numbers. But that's why they have that txschools.gov website. It's out there for parents and the community to see. And they really do have good graphics of kind of understand how they got to. But again, this is just the bullets on the left, those 1 through 7, how the system was redesigned. So these were kind of the key indicators. They look at the better of achievement or progress. So I don't know that Dr. Newman talked about domain 1 and domain 2. I heard her talking about the system, but that's looking at, are we hitting a certain measure or standard that's expected, or are students learning? And if you ask a school, what would you rather have? You want to see your kids meeting a standard here, or do you want to see them grow? The answers will vary. So if I ask you, what do you want? You want your kids to hit the standard, or you want them to grow? You want them to grow? So those answers are varied from time to time. That was number 1. Number 2, performance is through multiple valid measures. So it's not just the STAR test. We talk about graduation rate at the secondary campus. We also talk about the college, career, military readiness, which again, you guys put a lot of emphasis on. Looking at growth in multiple ways. We'll look at a graphic on that in just a second. A, that's the idea that long-term, that's what we want to achieve. We want to earn an A. I think number 5 is a little bit awkward because we're not really in a baseline year with A to F. They're saying C is average performance in a baseline year. I feel like we've been through some baseline years. We have to consider that we move beyond that. Number 6, ratings are based on a defined criteria, not a fixed distribution. And I know we're probably not supposed to use the word, we know how to play the game, but technically we do know how to help schools get some points that can help them increase their rating. And then number 7, the system designed is set for most years. So like for 5 years, we're not going to change the way we work this. Questions on the line? Here's the refresh right here. So you see 22, 23, the last time people told me, oh, that's like 3 years ago. Yeah, it is. But that is just kind of the timeline. 2016, 17, which is really 10 years ago now, is when they started collecting some of that baseline data. And you could see we worked through up to 21, 22. What was awkward about this year?
Right after COVID.
Right after COVID, so we're coming out of the pandemic there, and then we refreshed in 22, 23. So in the domains, and we won't spend a lot of time on these because Dr. Newman's already explained the system to you, the better of achievement or progress. So 70%, that's a whole lot of the accountability system. Domain 1 is student achievement. Did they hit the mark? Number 2 is school progress. Are they growing? And again, if I asked you, what do you prefer? I mean, there's not a right or wrong answer. But you all said we want to see their kiddos growing. 30%. This is domain 3. That's our federal domain. It's required to be 30%, which is a smaller chunk of that, but that's making sure we're looking at all subpopulations, helping to close the achievement gap. There's student achievement. If you have students in school or grandchildren in school, you might have seen some reports that have these terms on there. Dr. Newman, y'all talk about masters and meets.
We focus on meets and masters. Yeah, because we are never going to be able to achieve what we want to achieve without keeping our focus squarely on meets and
We don't
masters.
talk about these words with the board. Okay, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna click back, because I use Rapoport as an example. Dr. Newman told me several years ago, and I use you in examples all the time. We don't use that word. We do not focus on this. This is what you all focus on, but our state legislature focuses on that. That's what they said. Remember grade 3 reading and math? You've got it in front of you in a little colorful chart. Some of them there. Meets is what the legislature expects. What do you notice about the difference between these two levels here? They're both good. What's different?
15% different.
Right down here. This is looking at those students that might, these students would not go into those remedial courses when they start their freshman year of college.
Expected.
Expected,
Yeah.
as opposed to what?
High likelihood.
High likelihood. So last night we had a conversation about that. But both sound pretty good, but how's that different? One still needs some help. And if you think about either yourself or other people in the room, or maybe friends of yours, weren't some of us most likely to succeed in high school?
Mhm.
So looking at that, thinking about how those kiddos doing. They're 30, 40, 50 years old.
And just to say the reason we don't really talk a lot about approaches, even though that is a measure that is okay whenever the state's running their numbers, you cannot get all your kids to pass, which is approach, and get high scores. The only way that you're going to achieve accountability scores is if most of your kids are meeting and mastering. So it doesn't do us any good to talk about approaches, because if we get all of our kids to pass, to approach, we will still struggle unless we have most of our kids moving to that meets and masters level. We're not there yet, but that's one of the reasons why you see some of the growth in places and some of the struggles in places is because we're working on growing, changing trajectories. Now, again, if you look again across the state of Texas, if you look at economically disadvantaged percentages, like they directly reflect into the assessment. So what we look a lot of is this relative performance, right? When you're looking back at that chart that's in there, that is like schools like us. So how do we perform like schools like us? Okay, so that's what that relative performance is. Anyway, but that's why we don't, yes, approaches is a measure that you do get credit for. But on your closing the gaps, they take the average of the 3. So if 100% of your kids are getting to approaches, 10% are getting to meets and no one's getting to masters, you are not doing very well, even though you think you're doing good. So we really focus on meets and masters.
A teacher friend that goes, 100% of my kids. No,
That's not good.
technically, but what she just said is you got some meeting and none mastering, that's not the name.
Go ahead.
Wait, I'm sorry. Brightness on this, can we turn that down?
I have no idea.
I work in the dark, so a lot of light, I can.
I will do that while she's talking. That's not you, that's his screen setting.
Okay,
No, it's not you, it's.
okay, okay.
You can keep talking.
Okay, goodness, who they are? What's the difference in help these two groups of student level need? Do you think some of these kids don't need help at all, maybe? What do you notice?
Well, this is just my observation. Yes, because I have to be honest, I have a kid that masters grade level, but I wouldn't say that he doesn't need assistance. He needs different assistance. And they assume that if you're meeting grade level, oh, you're probably going to need some assistance, but not that if you've mastered it, that there's still something that you may need. And for him, it is focus. He has to be busy and continually to be challenged. So I think it just says, you can leave those kids alone, and that's not quite.
That's fine. Thank you for saying that. And I think about even one of my own kids, they weren't in school during this era of the STAR test. But if you put them in the corner over there and said, you just stay busy, you're gonna be in the office with them.
Yeah, that's him.
Okay, they have to stay at a different level. We have to acknowledge that. And these kids right here, they're gonna need some short-term targeted intervention, but when you go on over here, you have to say, well, that's more intense. This is maybe a little bit less. Maybe this is tutoring Tuesdays, and maybe that is, they go to some kind of learning lab. And then finally over here, the students that did not meet grade level. Now, those are our students of greatest concern, but we can't ignore over on this side. Dr. Newman said earlier, when you're making an A, that's great. It's harder to stay an A because you're performing up here at the top. And so while we work really, really hard with those kiddos down there, we cannot forget about the ones that are over on this side. So we spend a little more time on this one, but this is doing the anger, I think, in our system.
So I just want to understand, for instance, my son who's on WID, he didn't put forth the effort. You know what I'm saying? How is the scoring? Because you see, like, how jaded is the scoring when you have those students that they know the information, they could probably masters of tests, but they didn't perform because they didn't want to. Or do you know what I'm saying? How can that rating really truly be correct?
And there's there's this anxiety, there's so many factors. I'm not a testing person by any means. Sorry, this is
So how do you gauge that? Like,
there's so many
kids
factors.
get better, but what if they already aren't good?
That's what I believe that the teachers are the ones that should have this final saying, because who is the one that has more knowledge about how the kids perform? Even if they don't perform the testing, those are the things. The teachers are the ones that know.
And that's what, if you're looking at like the special session, one of the topics on the special session right now is to move from a single day to a 3 at beginning, middle, and end of year. So I don't know about very many other people, but I like the idea of not having a single day, but I am not real certain that I want to have 3 STAR test days in a year versus just 1, right? And so anyway, so those are some things on there. But to answer your question, that's why it doesn't take 100% to get an A. That's why there's variations. That's why you don't have to master 100% of the questions. There's variation for that, but that's also, we all know kids that we're like, where did that score come from? Right? Because that is not a reflection of you, and they didn't feel good that day, or they were mad that day, or that is a waste of their time, or their parents are completely opposed to it and they show up and turn it in blank because they are like sticking it to the man, right? Just because of what that is. And so anyway, I mean, I just like, this is the thing that we have to be a part of. I understand why we're like working through accountability, because we want to see where we are. We want our own data. We look at our own data anyway, right? Like, we want to see that. We want our students to be successful. One of the things I appreciate at this board is that you guys look at the whole picture of Rapoport. Are we safe? Do kids like it? Is our enrollment high? Meaning like kids are coming and they're staying. Is the parent feedback high? How do we do on achievement, right? It's a holistic picture that we look at as a district. And I think that's one of the things that I value about this board is, yes, you look at achievement, right? We're going to respond to that. We're going to talk about that. No, we're not where we want. I don't feel like our accountability scores reflect the work A, that our teachers and staff are doing on the campus, or B, the way that our families feel about this. And it does reflect the longitudinal process of Rapoport. We come in and we take you from where you are, which is all the impacts that society has, right, on economically disadvantaged families. And then we help you figure out that weird hormonal, psychological chaos that happens in middle school. And then by the time you graduate high school, we graduate you with industry-based certifications with a plan for college, career, or life, or military. Like, we do what we say. The problem is it's always going to be somewhat in conflict because there is heavy bias with economics in any major assessment, in my opinion. And we've got an academician that can say yes or no. But there is a heavy bias with that. And that is just something we have to live with. So the reality is our high school should be at an A, because we are dang good at what we do to get kids across the finish line, but they are not the only one. And we grow that now. We are seeing impacts of COVID and we're adjusting for that and what that looks like. So it is a little bump right now, right? But elementary is finally able to say all the things we put in place. Now we don't have COVID impact. Now we're starting to see some of that movement from that. Now, that is to say society has changed. So social stuff is still going to last for a long time from that. But I think when you're looking at it as a district, we have to look at achievement. We have to understand that this is how the state measures us, but it's not the only measure. And I appreciate that you guys look at all of those measures as we go through
Yeah,
these.
so that's the deck of cards that you've been dealt. If you're in a public school in Texas, which you are, those are the cards you've been dealt. But how you let it define you is a whole different story. And I think that's messaging that you all have to continually reinforce in your role of trustees. So just quickly, Dr. Newman kind of touched on this earlier. So you've got 100%, that's what your ratings are, elementary and middle school, at the high school, and for a K-12 campus, like some of our smaller districts, it's 40% stars, 40% college career military readiness, and then 20% graduation rate. And I'm not going to read all that over there to you, but we always remind districts when you are looking at how you're getting your points. It's not like I already do all this stuff. You will credit take first, you will credit. Yes, it's like you got to do all those. Not about driving. School progress, that's our second domain, looking at growth. And Dr. Newman already jumped into the piece over here about relative performance. It looks like she's already pulled some schools that are similar to you all. And I always like looking at that, because if they're doing better than us and they got the same type of kids as us, what are they doing that we're not doing? How can we replicate that? So we look at this graph over here about relative performance. There's some A campuses that are like 95% economically disadvantaged. Why are those campuses performing well? Or why are those districts performing well? That's a lot of kids that are already kind of behind the curve. What do you think?
Additional funding from tax dollars create more positions. Availability, like even teacher aides or extra staff on duty to provide extra tutoring.
Okay, so additional funding resources maybe have provided more people who provide more support for children. What else? What are those schools doing? What do you think?
More targeted learning, specific learning for those kids, or additional.
They're focusing on what they need to work on.
I'll say one of the things that we do is we pull, so what I gave you guys was area schools, not our comparative school group. And when you look at our comparative school group, it's pretty interesting because either you get districts like ours and we perform pretty well, or you get campuses like our campuses. But those are typically part of a larger district, because rarely do you see an urban look in a small campus. And so it's really hard to actually get a comparison group that we feel like is accurate, because you're either going to get a school within a large district like Aldine ISD, right? Like they have a school that's going to be almost all the way over to the right and almost all the way over the top. And we went and toured their site, and they were able to pull only TIA qualified teachers from across the district, pay them extra money, and put them at this campus. Well, we can't do that, right? Like you're at elementary or you're at elementary here, right? And so it's been interesting to try to navigate. Like, I mean, I've even reached out to TA and I'm like, give me somebody that's like us, a small school in an urban setting, high economically disadvantaged kiddos that is really knocking it out of the park. And they'll give me small schools that are in like rural settings, or they'll give me campuses that are part of large districts that have these crazy initiatives. And I'm like, I can't replicate that here. And so that puts us back in this kind of like, we're trying to figure it out the best we can. And we look at it longitudinally. I need to be quiet because I know.
And on the left hand side, this is growth year to year. So this is like third grade on the left, fourth grade on the right. The idea being you want them in the next year to bump up a performance level. Now notice this difference here. This is just new with this last slide deck from the last 2 years. High approaches, low approaches, not just approaches. High does not meet, low does not meet. So they've divided that into 2 separate categories there. Give you a little bit more information. Are they kind of at the top or kind of at the bottom in those 2 performance levels? This right here, accelerated learning. It was 2 school years ago now, I believe. It was August. We were all scrambling because students that did not pass reading, math, social studies, science were required to have 30 additional hours in every subject area. So if they bombed all 4 of those, how many hours of additional instruction is that?
100.
120 is a lot. We were scrambling to try to not we were schools were scrambling trying to figure out how we're going to get that extra time with the children now before school starts and throughout the school year. Now this last year though they revised that reading and math for the 2 focus areas, and it was 15 hours per subject area. So it was more doable, but still with administrators having to try to figure out how to work that in their schedule. So why would it be important to see if our students or our campuses are growing from year to year? Why would that matter to you?
So you know what you're doing that's right to allow for the growth that you can sustain.
And then, like you said earlier, you might have to ask some questions. What did we do differently this year that we didn't do last year? And does that contribute to us looking up a little bit? Anybody else? Why would you want to know if you're getting better?
Come on, you guys. I'm not supposed to be talking. I put a candy bar in my mouth just in case. No, I'm sorry.
You learn from your experience, you see, you have to track that. And Dr. Newman's used the word longitudinal growth multiple times tonight. Okay, they were in 3rd grade. How'd they perform in 4th grade and then in 5th grade and then in 6th grade? And it's tracking those. I'm sure Tyler has some kind of system. All your administrators have some kind of system. We're watching year after year. How are the students doing? And I think we've already kind of talked about that. Why do we want to compare students of the same economically disadvantaged status? Why would that information be valuable? But it is kind of tricky. Like she said, we do have some schools here that went to visit. School in Dallas ISD. Yeah, they were on the numbers, they were like the same, but it was little bitty schools out here that didn't even really kind of fit into that model of the ISD. So I do agree, Dr. Newman, there's some challenge.
Well, I have a question. So the comparison is how 3rd grade is doing now in 4th grade, or how 3rd grade is doing compared to 3rd grade last year?
Well, there's 2 different ways we look at it. So this colored sheet I gave you right here, this is what TEA says is important for the legislature. So TEA helps us carry that out. 3rd grade reading, 3rd grade math. Those are just the first 2 that are on here that come to mind. That is 3rd grade every year. That's a different group of students. But I know your administrators also track, because our folks work with that too. They were in 3rd grade and they went to 4th grade and then 5th grade. Cohorts, that's where we use the word longitudinal and tracking cohorts of students to see how are they performing as they progress through. So it's really 2 different looks at that.
When that talks about growth, it's looking at how did a student in
A kid.
what did they grow from 3rd grade?
Okay.
There is no growth in 3rd grade because there's not a 2nd grade test. So that's looking at the cohort of students and how that student grew from the.
Yes. And then if we had another stair step, I've drawn these before. We could do another one for 5th grade, and then we went to 6th grade, and then we went on to 7th grade. So, yeah, great point about there isn't that growth coming in because we don't have another.
We only get that from that meeting. Well, those are the only ones that students are taking year after.
The second design is so those are.
But that is why when I give the board the longitudinal data tracker, I color those cohorts for those of you that have been with us for a while, so you can track a cohort through the years through the subject. But most of this, when you talk about growth, is kid. Kid.
Okay. And finally, domain 3, closing the gaps. That's the one that is the federal domain, 30%. I'm not going to read all those to you. There are 18 student groups over here that we look at. I know you're thinking that's not 18, but if you look right here, 7 racial and ethnic groups, that's a big chunk of those on that list. I am always interested in students that are continuously enrolled or students that are mobile. Are they with us and they're doing well? Or are they not with us and suddenly they're doing real well? see, is it us or maybe those other systems performing better? So you gotta be in the data and to look at that information to see how those students are performing. These over here on the left are the different categories they look at. Academic achievement, that comes back to that NEATS level. Remember the 4 different levels we saw? Looking at student growth, looking at graduation rate, progress on the English language proficiency measures, and school quality student success, looking at those students that are performing high. These are our super groups. So this is something new that came out when we refreshed the ADA system. Here they are below. All students, so that's all of our kiddos that are taking the test. The 2 lowest performing, and I know that's misspelled, this is not my slide deck, racial and ethnic groups from the prior year, looking at groups of a minimum size of 10. So that is a small number. So even our small schools can't squeak by with that. They look at those small subplots.
Ours are African American and Hispanic.
American Hispanic. And then high focus. So this is unduplicated. So these are students who fall in multiple categories, but we might say before they kind of hit us in different areas. That's what that big group is, where they kind of combine them all together. As a data nerd, I really like this because used to in domain 3, we just looked at either they met it or they didn't. But now we have these 4 different levels. I'm not going to read all those to you. Long term though, you want them to get a 4. Sometimes they're going to be 3, meaning they're making a lot of progress, a little bit here. And as you go on down to see, those students are not making it. It's not students individually, it's student groups with 10 or more students in them. Again, domain 3, data people really like digging into that. STAR test we talked about a little bit. This is where I'm going to jump to though, because this is not just are the kids doing it well. Who is this really about?
It's the teacher
It's about
teaching
the
them.
teachers. It's about the adults in the classroom. And oftentimes we think, oh, the kids didn't get it. But it's that self-reflection and making sure we have opportunities for our teachers to grow to meet the needs of all the learning. Now, in the left-hand side of the graphic here, I skipped a slide earlier because it kind of repeats itself here. These are effective classrooms. In the first one here, this first example, we build background knowledge and vocabulary. Every effective classroom does that. Right here, we ask students to write about what they're reading. The next one, in the same effective classroom, we have open-ended formats. When I took a test, we just bubble in A, B, C, 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 D, D, C. Is that how we do classroom work every day? No, we don't. And so it's important. Effective classrooms have this. The test has that. So I'm not going to the other side over there. But the point being, if we're reading about the solar system, we should be testing about that and using that same kind of reading passage. Same thing here. If we are doing open-ended responses in the classroom, on the test, they're going to have open-ended responses. So they capped at 75%. So 25% of the questions, they're going to have to, well, I do writing. They don't write on the test. How do they take the written part of the test?
Yeah.
I chose open-ended responses.
3rd graders type.
Mm-hmm.
I sure do.
So I missed the
So long that they forget what they're supposed to be writing.
I missed the choice that we had of typing in high school. Remember, they figured it like that, but they don't do that. And then finally,
You should see a 4th grader
ensuring
try to pull a
students-
protractor down from. They have to pull a protractor down from the top and find the tool and slide it over and then manipulate it on there to line up with the angle. And then remember their answer and then click forward to the question and then select the right answer.
Some kids don't. The kids
We serve.
who have money.
Yep.
Like the higher SES kids have more exposure. to
It's crazy.
computers, therefore. Well, that's one of the factors that contribute to that experience.
Yep.
For the correlation between.
So I said I'd be quiet, but we're doing ELAR curriculum adoption at the elementary school, but we saw a big growth in elementary last year. And so I asked Lauren Teague, I was like, hey, so if we're adopting new curriculum, like where did we get this growth from? And she said, we have really great teachers. And I said, and she said, and we just took a little extra time to teach them how to take the test. Like to use the computer more, to engage with those sample tools more, to do that. Because we are anti like teaching to a test, but we just engage them more in electronic curriculum and just got them more used to it. Where, I mean, my own kids is an example, right? Like, granted, we live on a farm, we only have one TV, but still, like, they use technology often because I can provide that. for them versus some of our other families that may not have that accessibility. So it's all online and it's really complicated to navigate. Not the content necessarily, the structure, the way it is, how to, like you've got 7 different answer types that you can put in an open-ended question where you have to bubble or drop down or do a stem and leaf plot or do it.
And
Anyway.
that's kind of what number 4
Okay,
is
I gotta
about. And I'm effective classroom, making sure that all learners have the appropriate accommodations they need, and that's where the online assessment in it. And I know we've gotten better with online assessment. But remember the first few years they would crash or maybe down across the state, or disaster. But I think this last year things were clean. So educator advisory committees, people that are in the field every day do give input into the creation of these tests. And I don't know if you all have anybody on those committees. I had a teacher, this is pre-star, this was way back in the day, 18, 19 years ago, but they were on one of those committees and they felt it was really valuable because they could bring that back to the campus. Not that they brought back real test questions and real test answers, but just the experience of how those tests are put together. So there is that opportunity. Some of these pieces don't happen every year. It is the standard setting. So that's not an every year deal. But these committees do meet annually. They look at field test questions and then those come out to your students who are engaging in those tests. Summative assessment, when do we take that? STAR test is a summative assessment. When do we take it? Alex?
April, May.
Yeah, it's at the very end of the year.
Depending on the grade level.
Yeah, depending on the grade level. Some of those, the older kids take some of theirs in October. But why do we do it at the end? Why do we do that?
They need to learn to.
If we wanted to work throughout the full year, but summative.
There you go.
What if we taught one of those students learned over the course of that year? So there is great value in having that at the end of the year. That's that summative test. That's at the end of the year. But we're just starting school. How many days have y'all been in? A week or 2? This is week 2.
2.
This is 2.
9 days.
9 days.
9 days. I was like 10 days. Yeah, I was gonna say 10 days, right?
Yeah. Alex, you got Labor Day coming up. Alex is tired, but she's not as tired as the people in Temple that just started today. I mean, today you're just exhausted. So, but early in the school year, we do a lot of these diagnostic tests. We do short assessments to see where our kids are because they've been off for the summer. Formative assessments, those go on throughout the school day, throughout the school year. There might be a little yellow sticky note before you leave today. What are 2 things you learned about the plant system we're talking about? Why would that be valuable for a teacher to have just that little sticky note when they leave for the day? Retention.
What do I need to reteach?
What I need to be teaching. Last night, one of the board members said, well, then I know tomorrow, if they didn't get it, I'm gonna have to spend some time to go back and reteach that content. Interim assessments, those are kind of like the bigger benchmarks. Maybe that's October and February, I don't know. You have a schedule though, that I'm sure the principals have put out for the year. We know what those dates are. It seems like all we do is test, but why do we test? Think back to that. Why do we assess? What do we know? To know what?
If they're learning.
Are they learning, which is a reflection on?
Or are we teaching?
Teaching. Are we doing a good job teaching that? So we shouldn't just say we're just testing all the time for no reason. It needs to be purposeful. So the TEKS, this is our state curriculum. I'm gonna skip that slide. Here's a TEK from grade 5. I don't think we did this in grade 5 when I was in grade 5. Estimate to determine solutions to mathematical and real world problems involving addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That reminds me of like story problems. And I don't know if you were like me, but when the teacher would pass out something that had words on it in math class, I go, oh no, I hope I don't have to do story problems. Didn't you do them? So here's a story problem. Why would that be valuable for students to be able to do that problem? What are they being asked to do?
We subtract.
Well, they have to round. They have to round, they have to subtract.
Recent, interpret.
Yeah, to interpret the data.
Real world interpretation application. Okay, what are these people in this problem doing? They're driving. These are 5th graders. Guess what?
They don't drive.
They don't drive yet, but guess what? They just can't wait till they can drive. So why is this important?
It's applicable to their life.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's applicable to their life. And someday it's kind of a question about the trains that you're traveling the same, towards each other. It's important to know that later in life. But last night somebody said, well, they need to know how to estimate when they go to the grocery store about how much am I spending based on how much I have in my pocket. Expectations, some kids really struggle with that level of expectation that we have for them. For you, for your principals, for the teachers, and for the kids really doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter how far from behind we're coming, we have to have that idea that all kids can learn. So your House Bill 3 board goals are on your sheet here. So
They're also on your one pager for
they're on
academic.
your one pager, but it's the color one right here. I'm not gonna read them to you. You all will be working this fall, as you move through this work with Dr. Parsons and Dr. over there. But you can see grade 3 reading, grade 3 mathematics, 8th grade, you'll see a couple of those for 8th grade, and then you see your college military readiness. So those 3 up here on the screen, grade 3 and the CCMR, the legislature said you have to have those. So how are we doing with reading academies? Is everybody up to par on that? We're compliant. Okay. So we have some kids that are still coming, I call them kids, young adults moving into the teaching profession. All the educator preparation programs are not teaching that. So we had a big conversation about that last night. Some are not.
We have several new hires that'll be a part of that again.
It'll be part of that. You'll work with Teresa on that. All right. So just to know, this is a plan that has to be on your website. You have to look at it every year.
Can you go back to the slide with the or before that?
It's-
What does that say before military readiness? Is that saying this is 5th grade level, that he's having to learn this stuff and he's now almost military ready?
So the goal is college and military ready. So if he is on track, then he should be CCMR ready. College career
I
military.
can't think
They're
of
saying 5th grade education level is close to military.
No, he's saying if they can answer this question in 5th grade, by the time they graduate, their trajectory, by the time they graduate high school, they will be ready.
What I think
Yes.
this is the new thing. They didn't have this in the slide deck last time. They added it. I think this is looking academic at growth. And this says and military readiness over here. I think it's just saying, even though he's in 5th grade, it's an indicator or a predictor.
Yeah.
Of when he continues to
Predictor.
progress through school. It's the same way for 3rd graders.
The paragraph at the top that's describing what the cheeks are,
Okay.
they're what you should know at the grade level to be prepared for success later in life.
Don't
So
put anybody
knowing
in
it
5th grade
could-
education.
Yes. Dr. Shane, thank you for doing that.
Okay, well said. All right.
Later.
Okay, I think that's important because it's not, that says next success in life, which is saying about your seniors or juniors and seniors in high school, but it's 3rd graders, are they ready for 4th? 4th graders, are they ready for 5th? And 5th graders ready for 6th and so forth. But teach, that is our state curriculum. So we don't just decide, hey, we want to talk about dinosaurs in 5th grade. We have to do what the state says we have to teach.
Because we're a public school,
And
period.
that's why this graph is important. Everybody across the state teaching the same stuff, or should be. But you know what? We have some teachers that really like dinosaurs. So they try to spend 2 weeks on dinosaurs and they're wasting valuable learning time because if those kids move somewhere else, they've lost 2 weeks of what they were supposed to be learning about. So it's important that we stay on the state, which is the teach. Okay,
Yeah.
goal. Now this is important. Typically, when we go around the schools, we are seeing these kind of goals right here. They're proficiency goals. Did our kids hit what we said we wanted to hit? These are called growth goals. Did they make the growth from one year to the next? Comparison goals. I have not seen these in any school that I've been out to. I'd be curious if these two have. I've not seen comparison goals. TEA is asking us to get this language out to you all. So we're not just setting proficiency. This is what we expect, but we're looking at growth and we're comparing student groups from one year to the next.
I have a caution to say, hey, just real quick, I know I said I was gonna be quiet. So we have been looking at growth goals for a long time because we have to have growth goals in order to get to proficiency because we're not at proficiency yet. So just so you guys know, like what's in front of you, what was in the academic strategic plan, it was all about growth goals because we had to have stair steps and structures in place and we had to grow students at a greater rate because we have to get up to where we are at a place where the board wants us to be with proficiency outcomes. I know it's intended to be the opposite. Proficiency is baseline, growth is more aggressive, and comparison is really the highest. But we've had to be in a growth goal mindset for a while because we have not been able to meet those high level proficiency goals that we want, or that achievement goals where we want our kids to be. Then we'll be able to look at comparison goals because when we reach those goals, all of our kids are going to perform high because we're high economically disadvantaged and we're high minority, which are all the target groups anyway. So when we achieve, we will have met the others. So we've been focused on growth so that we can get to achievement.
And I'll argue that these are growth goals, even though they're not using that word exactly like TJ used it in that example there. You're checking from year to year to see, are we growing and improving? So shared vocabulary, just real quick, adult outcomes. This is what is not done by students. So can you think of something you talk about in board meetings that kids don't do? And it's good that we're spending time on this side talking about what kids do, but what do y'all do? What do you talk about that has to do with kids? And I know you're thinking everything we do is about the kids. It is. But
Staff retention.
staff retention,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to do with the kids. I've had people argue that with me though. Said, oh yeah, it does, because if the kids are not doing what they're supposed to do, then teachers leave. But staff retention is not a student outcome, it's a goal. What's something I should talk about? Brady's area is an important facility improvement. Facility improvement, kids,
Finances,
building.
right?
Yeah.
Money, kids aren't doing the budgets, but student outcomes, that's what kids do. That's what the kids do day in, day out. That's what we measure. So here's some examples. Which ones are students and which ones are adult when we think about outcomes? So new buildings.
Adults.
Are adults.
Students.
Student performance in extracurriculars.
Students.
Balanced budget.
Adults.
Technology program.
Adults.
And partner attendance.
Students.
And it's always a very.
I love it.
Why is that a very hard response?
Because they can't drive themselves to school. Yeah, adult.
That is adult. What about SAT and ACT results?
Students.
Students, detailed lesson plans,
Adults.
current based certification,
Students.
teacher incentive plans,
Adults.
and school board conferences.
Adults.
All right, there we go. So it's important to distinguish pain.
We don't talk about conferences for school boards.
I'm
I don't take them to any.
gonna ask if y'all go to that conference y'all want now. When and where?
Yeah.
We don't because, well, we don't because it's targeted at traditional schools. And there's so much that's not applicable to charter schools. We don't,
But they do have a charter school conference.
not for boards. It's not good for boards.
Not for boards,
Not good for boards.
for administrators.
Mhm. Although we've talked to them about a more inclusive, like robust board track, but. they don't have
On
that.
this, student outcomes versus student outcome goals. We won't spend a lot of time on this because we're too close to our ending time. But although you already have good goals in place, a baseline is where you start, the target's where you want to be. The population is the group of kids we're talking about. We don't just say all of our kids are going to improve in math. We need to be specific. Where do they start? You got your numbers right here. Where do we expect them to finish? And then we aren't just all kids, we're talking about third grade, for example. And then we want to have a month and a year. So that's what we look at. We talk about SMART goal. And I thought I had an example in here of SMART. But when we think about on the right-hand side over there, thinking about student outcome goal, when your superintendent is building the budget, she needs to be thinking about resources being allocated to those areas. Why would that be important? Thinking about your goal.
The support of staff need to provide the quality of education.
Yeah, and so if we're doing something really, really well, probably don't need to allocate much money to that. We want to maintain, we want to continue, but if we're struggling, she needs to make sure she gets that in the budget so we can identify that and plan ahead. What about influence of a superintendent? I always use that example of going down the hall and teaching fifth grade math. Is she gonna go do that? What does it mean to influence?
Tyler said I was welcome to, but
I don't know. She might have to fill in. I've had to fill in the lunchroom before. What does it mean to be able to influence that? She's not gonna go teach fifth grade math. How can she influence improvement? Her presence. Her presence, or in the teachers, the structures. The system structures, knowing what they need. Do they need professional development? Do they need some after-school meeting time to understand the data? What do they need? So here's a student outcome goal. So I think this is in your handout, but we're just going to do it together real quick. So the percentage of third grade students who scored at meets or above grade level on star reading will increase from 45% in June of 22 to 64% by June of 27. So they want us to underline the population. So if we just do it together, what am I underlining? Who was it?
Great.
Oh, African American, Asian.
Up here, just in the middle. Third grade students. Okay, so we would underline that. they underline a whole bunch of that, to meet grade level or above. And then draw a rectangle around the baseline month and year. So if we were drawing that, where would that be? 45 and then 22, okay. Circle around the target. What's the target we want?
64.
There it is. 2 lines under the deadline. June 27. This is just a good way to ask myself, have I identified all these components? And brackets around the identification, identifying that measurement tool. What are they using to measure it?
Star reading.
Right. Then over here, they're just showing you how we have our different years progressing up 5 years. And we have all students. And then like somebody said over here, we have our different subpops of students working across. Goal progress measures, I can't remember if y'all did these or not required by legislation. These up here are. So that is, if you want to monitor other indicators, for example, how are students doing in grade 2 reading? Would that matter? It does.
We have other strategic initiatives that are in other places, but we move through the academic strategic plan with clear indicators. And so we really focused on what are those big ticket items.
And some schools look at like 8th graders, how they doing in Algebra 1 as an indicator of college career military readiness. So again, these are just opportunities. They're not required, but it's important if you decide to do them that they have that same smart format. A monitoring report that might come to you all, and I know that Dr. Newman has different kind of charts and things she brings. I cannot make things like this, so mine were strictly like a table with data in it. But this shows us how we're doing across time. You'll see the goal up here at the top. So you're bringing that back to the boards in the forefront of their attention. We can see the goal progress measures if we choose to do that. We have a graphic representation. I guess this is where they are, where that star is. You can see 5 years plotted out. Number 3, we're slightly off track because, and it's some kind of an indication of overall progress. Why would this conversation be important for Dr. Newman and the principal to have with you all? We're slightly off track. Why would you want to know that? Because we want to get up here. Doesn't look like right now we might not make it. Why would that conversation be important?
Want to know if we can course correct what, maybe what went wrong, or if we pinpointed an issue or an opportunity.
A contributing factor, context.
And that gives her and the administrators that opportunity to explain along with, this is most important. We're going to spend a whole lot of time understanding what happened. When we move forward, this is what we want to happen. And that's important. Because we walk away and go, well, we're not meeting it.
Also, if our bringing initiatives or funding, like that's your background, right? Like that's me saying, hey, we want to do this, that, and this. And you can go, oh, that makes sense because this is the problem that you're trying to fix. Yeah, that makes sense on how you want to use funds or money or planning dollars or consultant fees or whatever.
And so when I'm sitting over here listening, I'm listening to what you're talking about in your meeting, but I noticed some of you started asking them. And it's good for board members to ask effective questions. So there are 3 kinds of questions: technical, tactical, and strategic. These are words coming from TEA. They're wanting boards to get better at these kind of questions, not, oh, hey, I saw the other day on Facebook that y'all had all the elementary school teachers doing such and such professional development, and they didn't like it. It was a waste of their time. Why'd we do that? Not an appropriate question for the board to ask, and I hope that didn't happen here. Because that stuff on Facebook all the time, and I know Mark says you get off Facebook.
I say you mentioned Facebook quite a bit.
I don't think that's on Facebook. No, because I'm busy. I haven't had time to look. Technical question. Looking at how something is measured. That's an appropriate question that you might ask the superintendent. A tactical question. How are we doing something? And finally, strategic questions. How something aligns to our priorities. So you have your strategic plan. You're going to be reworking that. You have these goals here. It's asking questions about what we're doing and how that aligns. So these 3 are all very appropriate for you as board members to ask. You're operating from a strategic level. So that's why this is really important for you to think about that aligned to priorities. This is just saying, if you ask Dr. Newman a question in the meeting and she doesn't know, give her a little bit of grace, give her a little bit of time. Sometimes you have to go back and research something. She might not stay up here and do it tonight. She might not get to it tomorrow, but give her time. And when she sends you information in a weekly update or at your next meeting, Give her the time to fully investigate whatever that is, because it's her job to go figure that out. Didn't we talk last time, if we brought a whole bunch of questions to the meeting, it was this group. If we brought a whole bunch of questions to the meeting, we're already concerned about the length of the meetings, it's just going to make the meeting long. So we need to be conscious of that. What can we just provide in writing to you and bring back to the whole group, in a full board report? Understanding past actions, that was kind of on that graphic earlier. We're gonna spend a lot of time talking about how we got to where we are. Then we're gonna spend the fourth of that time talking about what we're gonna do next to improve performance. So just kind of, these are probably the things you kind of talk through, what worked, what didn't, how do we know? Isn't that right? So very good. So our point tonight was to go through these charts here, accountability system, the STAR test, the TEACS, which is our curriculum, and effective word practices, which is about bringing those questions to the group. Oversight means that you're not in the trenches day to day. You have a different role, and that's to think strategically as you lead your district. So just a quick wrap up before we transition, because I can't leave without harvesting the learning, as Mark says. Something you can take away. I know we went through it kind of rushed tonight. What is your role? What can you take away from this conversation this hour? Stay in my lane. Stay in your lane. Ask me the right questions. Good.
Oversight, that
Oh.
word, yeah.
Oversight, that is your role.
Be intentional.
Be intentional. Yeah, and y'all been really good to talk about that. I know when I was there last time, we talked about intentionality. Anybody else? I'm not gonna make everybody answer. Emily, anything before we transition? No. Okay. All right, Dr. Newman, thanks for having us up. And these two are gonna.
We're not done. Like this, people don't need to go.
We're gonna take a 5-minute restroom break at 7:40, let's start back at 7:45, and we have every intention to get y'all out of here before 9, if not sooner.
Oh,
Sound like a plan?
sounds like what you said last time. Exactly. I was 9 when I hit my car. But it wasn't real hard.
I know. Tyler's telling me too hot. I know, sorry. Did you notice I stood up in the back at the last minute? I stood up in the back. Don't put her down.
That's fine.
I did.
So I'm sorry, I can't answer right now. I'm in a meeting.
I did. I didn't mean to call you, but I accidentally did call you.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to keep her and I do.
I noticed
Yeah. It was awful.
Full shades or other.
I know, I'm still a little bit there and I thought, I'm close like this. Yes, so it can turn on its nighttime set.
Oh,
It was sitting at 78 right now.
I swear. I think that's time of used to be like developed about. Where that is back, where that is. Going back to when George W. Bush was Michelle, that was like the signature education policy.
We go to the lake.
Made those schools dependent.
And then just specific. Location, they all have plans.
Yeah.
I went to their agree.
But that's school, that's been the way that Texas public was operated, but it became.
Interested in the school.
Yeah, I knew a friend of mine.
So that made it national. So what, every city now does have that every year.
But it's only those snapshot that it's like to you, your sex gets up for failure and teacher. Because it's not a true indicator of exactly what's happening. 10 months out of the year.
And so. I have.
I love the, in fact, no child will be out here, I was 5 parties only. Even though.
Oh, I have a problem with I have a problem with the enforcement of this test that only looks at one note. And you know how those students. I see where they're like trying to figure out, are we having depth enough? Or am I wearing yesterday's here? Or do I have a pencil? Like. The computer, right.
Does anybody want to take some of these wraps with them? Take some? Take some? Okay, I'm just gonna leave mine here. I'm gonna go ahead and fridge, but I'll leave here.
That's all the questions. This is going on needs to be in education.
Well-known critique of study.
Okay, Rashawn said, just a question for you. Is TV still asking for race-based data because we're not supposed to be looking at DEI initiatives anymore? And I was
So
going,
if you look, they wrote a very specific carve out for that in fact, it was in the board policies that you sent to us. Like, you cannot talk about race, ethnicity, except as it's related to collecting data that is intended to like measure.
so it's almost like you can't talk about it, but we can.
We can talk about race because it's important testing. You can't, even if you think it's important for teaching.
So
Race was certainly gonna, but it wasn't.
they, well, that's a hard question. I'm gonna answer you honestly. So historically, race and economics were together, but they don't like to say.
I don't want to people that.
So it's still on race, because they don't like to say that this has to fix economics. So it's easier to look at race because everybody should be able to do the same. Correct, right, but that's not as intelligent, that's a language barrier. But, so that is why they try. Because they thought all this same.
Man, I
But
don't know how to name is just spelled placard there. Look at that. I wanted to like
That's hilarious.
ask you a question using that.
And it's a lot.
I didn't know this was about.
I love it.
Captain's with a seatbelt sign on, time to return their seat. The captain has a seatbelt sign on.
I know, because you live out.
Get ready to.
Yeah.
You need to do something.
Ask him for a 15-minute learning.
They are. Don't you remember?
I'll watch. She'll be calm.
Sciatic.
Get on chair. You can probably
I will.
Yeah, so it's your.
Yeah, for sure. Use them up, yeah, chair too. That's
Thank you. I have.
sounds good.
Oh, nice.
For my desk chair.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, guys, go ahead and get going in the second half of our session tonight. Alice and I have the pleasure to be with you for the next several months through the fall here as we tighten and piggyback off the work that Stephanie has been sharing. We did board operating procedures. A month ago, we talked about evaluating and improving student outcomes tonight. Both of those very tangible and important pieces to your annual board training. In a sense, that evaluating and improving is theme for what we do with you for the rest of the fall in building out the next 3 years of the Rapoport strategic plan. So Alice and I had the pleasure, starting back in the 23-24 school year, of being able to embrace Rapoport as one of our pilot districts in the Texas strategic plan, building out that academic plan. Last year in 24-25, we got to ride along with you in the second year and train on the systems and procedures on how to manage the performance of those initiatives that you identified in that plan. We're continuing to work with the leadership this year on some of those other initiatives. But we're also piggybacking off that work, kind of where we left off, so to speak, from that academic component, and build out and address the remaining levers, which we'll talk about tonight, into the next year's strategic plan. That'll kind of piggyback and embrace what we already built up the last 2 years. We're going to talk tonight about the effective district framework, and that's really the focus on the first half of the conversation tonight. And then we'll talk about the second half, which is kind of the landscape analysis process and what we'll do to see what the current state is on those remaining levers. So what is the effective district framework? Well, we've said that in a couple of months here in the last conversations that we had, but it is an aspirational framework that describes the highest leverage district practices that can be implemented to improve systems and what we talked about tonight, improving student outcomes. What are a couple of key words that jump out to you when you read that statement? Implement.
Leverage.
What kind of leverage? Highest leverage, right? We're not looking for the low-hanging fruit. What's going to move the most, make the greatest impact? What else?
Aspiration.
It's an aspirational framework. I always refer to it as that carrot on the stick, right? Something that we're always trying to get to, and it's never enough because I can keep going. I can try getting to the next, try getting to the next. Never being satisfied. So this is the framework put out by the Texas Education Agency. And in that aspirational mindset, that these are what the most effective districts in the state are doing. It's broken down into 6 levers or 6 components, if you will. The levers define the essential and high performing areas of the district across the state. And then we start funneling down to the different specificities within the framework. We have what comes next are essential actions. And they describe what the most effective districts do to support powerful teaching and learning under each specific lever. And then we have key practices. This describes the essential action with specificity and how it's put into motion. We have levers, then we have essential actions, and then we have key practices. Now we'll take that theme as we examine some of those levers tonight. Here are the 6 levers in their entirety. Lever 1 is planning and performance management. So in 23-24, we started building out that academic strategic plan. That was part of the lever 1 work. In 24-25, we started teaching the practices of managing the performance of that plan. Lever 2 has to do with talent and personnel. Lever 3, integrated student supports, things like your school culture, safety, behavioral systems, behavioral plans. Lever 4, academic experience. Lever 5, instructional capacity building. And lever 6, finance and operations.
Can I just, so it's not highlighted up here, but one thing that, and it's not in a slide that comes after. So one thing I'd like to highlight is levers 3 and 4 are really your student experiences. So what culture do they experience? What do they experience socially and emotionally? And then lever 4 is what do they experience academically? So these are really your student experience. The levers 2, 5, and 6 are your district-wide system.
Critical enabling system. What enables the students to have those experiences?
And then this is really a foundation. Like, what are you doing to put these into place and to manage and progress monitor?
So these are the areas that we focused on through the Texas Strategic Leadership Academic Strategic Plan building process and what we performance managed last year. You can see that here in your very specific academic strategic plan that was built out for Rapoport. We start with those aspirational statements built around the aspirational framework with the district's vision around connect, cultivate, and champion. And then also the mission, which I noticed tonight on the back of your nameplates, right? And then we did something even more, we went a step further, as Allison was talking about creating those student experiences. We spent time and dedicated with the steering committee, met with, composed of district leadership, and we said, what do we want the students in Rapoport to experience every day when they sit in this classroom, when they're on the bus doing an activity, when they're in the cafeteria, when they're on the court? What do we want them to experience? What do we want them to feel? And this goes along with our vision and mission and our core beliefs, 6 core beliefs that you have. That every Raven every day will experience a safe and consistent and respectful learning environment where they are seen and heard. Every Raven every day will experience a challenging and engaging learning environment that fosters student ownership and critical thinking led by well-prepared, proactive, and effective educators. Go back to that talent lever. And every Raven every day will experience a learning environment that will empower them to engage productively, learn from their mistakes, develop grit and resilience, contribute positively to their community. Okay? Once we started this with this backward planning in mind, filling out the plan, you then hone back in what Stephanie talked about tonight, what you have to do by statute. We started by examining and resetting your House Bill 3 goals, 3rd grade RLA, 3rd grade math, CCMR. But then your steering committee didn't want to stop there. They said, we want some other student outcomes for the grade levels we're not really addressing here in statute and House Bill 3. So we identified 2 other outcomes on 8th grade. 8th grade RLA and 8th grade RLA math as well. And then we identified those major areas of focus: talent, academic experience, those were our priorities. And then we built out the following initiatives, which we are working on over the next 3 to 5 years to manage the performance. Anything else, Allison, on that?
No, so so the strategic plan last year was the academic strategic plan. Last year was year 1. So the administration is working into year 2, building those performance routines in on to follow those, and they meet quarterly to do walkthroughs and gather data and identify where they are and make updates and changes.
This was a particular initiative that we kind of prioritized last year as far as teaching assistants to performance management, which was aligned expectations for engaged class.
This year, that one will continue with metrics. There are metrics in place for strong foundations. It's the reading curriculum that they're implementing currently. And then also P2C, the professional development model overhaul.
And TIA.
And TIA,
Yeah. Teachers.
But all of them, every time they meet quarterly, they discuss them and the progress and where they are and talk about updates and changes.
The focus on this plan is not just to build a great plan and live on a shelf somewhere and it's not worth that, right? It's to make sure it comes to life. And that's what the performance management piece does. It makes sure that we're giving validity to what we said we were. So as we look into where we are picking up now, after building out the academic strategic plan with the Texas Strategic Leadership Initiative that you guys were a part of, we're going to address the other levels of TEDS by looking at level 1, level 3, and level 6 over the next several months and build out that plan. Allison is going to talk more about tonight about the evidence that we're gathering and the landscape analysis that is going to give us feedback and data on those levers so that we bring it back to you guys, and you are our new steering committee through this process over the next few months. So we make decisions on how we build up out the remainder of that plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to take about 10 minutes. We're going to get you up for just a second because everybody likes to get out and do walk around activities. We are. Just to familiarize yourself a little bit more with the EDF. We're going to move into 3 groups. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to identify the groups. I know we have 3 committees. We have finance, we have facilities, and we have district improvement. If we can have one person from each committee represent each forward. In other words, one from each group and each one, so we kind of break up the committees a little bit. We are going to examine the remaining three levers. One group's going to examine lever one will examine lever three, and one will examine lever 6. You're going to read through and discuss the assigned lever that Alice is going to pass to you, and you're going to create a poster with the following information. Give us a brief overview of the lever. We're going to ask you to call out kind of team things here in just 10 minutes. And then here's the big question. What connections to your district, to the Rapoport, do you see in your lever? So we're going to talk about planning, performance management. We're talk about integrated student supports and finance and operations. Those are the focal points across the next 6 levers. Everybody kind of understand what we're doing? Give us an overview and then talk to us about what connections that you see. So if you'll break up from your committees, one representative from each one. It is 7:59 at 8:09, 8:10. We're gonna come back together and just kind of share out.
You don't remember which one they are, just grab one.
Remember, as you look through the document, remember how we said that the lever was constructed. It starts off with the lever. The name of the lever is its area of prioritization or its focus. Perfect. Then from the lever, you're going to narrow it down and whittle it down to the essential actions. And then you'll whittle it down to the key practices. That is the format in which the lever is constructed. Take a few minutes if you need to do some individual reads, if you need to collaborate with each other. Yeah, so we want an overview. And then we want to share out about connections we see with Rapoport.
Overview, and then how you.
Finance operations.
You're teaching the other 2 groups when you do your overview. What's it about? And then what do they need to know? How does it relate to Rapoport? So what's the overview?
I'm not the one that's making.
I know. You love a good act.
We've got these notations, so we just think of examples.
We're kind of the top of that. Same page, is it? Just get that, and then you can look at the actual events.
Select one. Revise the calendar. Planning time. Responsible teachers.
So do you start with the summary? So what is kind of the summary of finance and operations? Like if you had to give like a 1 sentence to teach these other people what that's about, what would you say? Besides just finance and operations, right? Like what are the things that, like big picture things that we're going to be talking about when we go on this campus? What kind of research?
Time.
Right? Like this, like building stuff.
Turn that show there.
That's where the money for the students are. That's a lot. A lot of.
Yeah.
So it's how we use the resources. It's not the negative, you need, money. We charge.
Long hair. Stay welcome.
Just like, what are some examples?
Keywords that jump out.
In our district.
So remember that the focus of this lever is finance and operations. A lot of people just hear the word finance and think it's all about money. It's not just all about money. What about the operational standpoint of it? Master schedules. We have enough time allotted in the schedules and classes to carry out the curriculum that's needed.
Strategic planning process.
Different ways. That will stay. So much.
Revamp this.
Summarize that, but I think that's like. That's more holistic.
We implemented the requirements.
I try to read what I heard based on what I saw. That's holistic. I like to see all the support that behavior and safety. And I thought it was
Yes.
I didn't.
Some of the days.
Safety, with staff, empowered staff that addresses behavior and needs at all levels. Something, but yeah.
What about?
So while we're back.
Generating. Being ready to change. Well, it is here though.
And you might find that some of them.
Sure. No more. That's so this is a quick summary. This, these are the essential actions.
We've got 4 more minutes, guys. About 4 more minutes.
Yeah.
You showing everything?
Yeah.
No, these are your results. Sure, I can see it.
Yeah.
That's what the checklist. Like when they did the safety. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was 400.
We stepped up our.
Yeah, matter of fact, you just took one on today.
Maybe, but.
Yeah, networks, that network data security, cybersecurity, and all of that. You guys are teaching. Safety, door access. Matter of fact, secondary, we work on the secondary is moving to where all doors are locked all the time.
So.
Yeah, I'm like. Look at registration, there's buses, being able to get to the hospitals. Providing that, like removing barriers, physical barriers.
In and out.
Getting it all in.
I know we've done what is my Rapoport. Okay, that's what she wants.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
All those.
A lot of regional.
Because of the other. Also, Tyler was like, hey, yeah, I'll get it. Like, just tell them that it's not. It's not like flying outside.
We heard the same thing.
All right, guys, as y'all are wrapping up your thoughts, go ahead and just stand where you're at your chart paper. Let's stand at your chart paper as you're wrapping up your final thoughts. That way we can refer back to them as we kind of call out to each other. So the purpose of this activity, more than anything else, is to kind of get you familiar with the process of breaking down that lever and see the different actionable steps that are involved in trying to carry out those aspirational priorities, which build out the 6 levers of the effective business framework. As we stated in the PSL process, focusing on the academic plan, we already addressed levers 2, 4, and 5 with the in-district steering committee. And now we could call this the governance steering committee, made up of board members and also other district personnel, with Tyler adding in here, not from administrative level. We're going to be looking at those other areas of planning and performance management, integrated student supports, and finance and operations. So we're starting at the top of level 1. Just take 2 minutes. Give us a brief overview of what you learned about your lever, what applications or connections you think you see at Rapoport.
So for lever 1, the overview that we came up with is to create a vision for student success, develop strategic roadmap, and monitor this. It's supposed to say something else, but monitor is the key word.
Talk to us more about that. Why is the monitoring piece so important?
You can implement strategies and different things and ideas that you want to happen and start them, but did you track the data? Did you see how it performed? Did it do well? Did it fail? You need to reinvent it.
Yeah.
Monitoring the focus makes sense to me though, because you're monitoring if we're focused on the right thing. Like, do we need to shift it or do we?
Yeah, we're monitoring focus areas and progress is what we saying. And that was supposed to write that last part.
I'm gonna have a long-term goal, and we want to make sure our eyes stay focused on the long-term goal.
Absolutely. Well, you're so right. For 12 years before I broke into the dark side of school administration, I was a teacher and a coach. And I was a football coach for 12 years. And every Sunday and Saturday, we come up with a great game plan, right? But we had to monitor it on Monday. We had to monitor it on Tuesday. And if it's Wednesday, the same was on Wednesday, the heat's in the barn. If it's not good on Wednesday, it's not going to Friday night, right? So the monitoring piece is just as important as the plan. So what do we have on connections?
Strategic plan, strong mission internalized by the district, recognizing weaknesses and areas for improvement, data collection and analyzing.
Like these are some areas that we felt like that. Strengths, and then it's also some weaknesses. The mission and vision of the district is very clearly internalized by many people, really well established. The strategic planning process we're going through now is really a big part of what this lever is all about. And data collection has certainly become an increased area of focus. But I would also feel like we do have some weaknesses in some of the progress monitoring portion, and the performance management of making sure that creative vision and mission actually is accomplished in some of the initiatives.
Great job. Great overview. Number 3, integrated support. Tell us what that is.
I wanted to close it, but
Oh, you felt- Ah, good.
Okay. All right, so our level was integrated student support systems. As you kind of talked about, these are the things that are like wraparound services for a student to make sure that they are welcome and safe and have an environment in which they can do all of the stuff that's written in that academic strategic plan, all the learning that goes on. They have to know that who they are belongs and they're prepared, and staff is empowered to address any of their behavior and their needs at all levels. We talked about some connections here, like obviously there's diagnostic testing that goes on to ensure that students with specific needs get those accommodations they need. We do stuff to engage parents because it's about bringing in the community and making sure people feel safe. Through block party, through social media, messaging helps build the culture. Clubs and sports ensure that there's opportunities for students to engage in a lot of ways, and even something like the Guardian program to measure student safety tended to ensure that, again, that kind of holistic or wraparound services are provided for all students to learn. You want to close this out?
Yes, we call this the feel good lever. Because we got to focus on what it feels like to be a part of the community, not as much monitoring or technical, but really the engagement, the experience, and the excitement that people have. And then I took Neil's slogan for Feel Good, Learn Good, saying that should be a t-shirt. I think we should rock the block with a shirt like that. And then I
Very good. We did get that on video. But this, so, the question, but is this an important piece?
absolutely.
It is, or it wouldn't be part of the effective district framework, right?
And may I also say,
Yeah.
I felt like that was brought up this evening when we talked about our ratings, that the whole picture of where our kids in, not necessarily where they are during that snapshot, what they feel like, what parents feel like, what they feel the value is of Rapoport beyond maybe the ratings that come out. So I think the culture has a great impact on whether or not you feel like you're getting the most out of the school. And sometimes you may stay in the place that has all of these things while you're working on your acting. That may not be the thing that you leave for because everything else is so great. So you work on that.
Absolutely. I love your example. They're pretty broad there.
You almost think of it like a Maslow's, like we have to, these are the systems set up that kind of take care of a lot of those Maslow's.
This is the base they have to do so they can get to the other stuff. Also, this is what keeps people here. The academics have to be enough, but parents are in parenting for the long haul, right? They're in it for graduation and college career and life, right? So they understand like it's a journey as we move through this, but that is what tells them whether Rapoport is good for their kid or not.
Feel good, learn good.
Amen.
I got it.
I'm a size large. All right. Number 6. Go ahead.
So our level was finance and operations. And our overview is kind of like how to use the resources strategically. And those resources includes the physical, the human, and physical and time management as well. Let you.
Yeah, so I feel like ours was a little bit easier to list because we could point to these concrete things, whether it's expanding the calendar, of course, the gym encompasses all these, right? Community, marketing, recruitment, teacher raises, whether it's school safety, attention to that, all those activities.
Absolutely. And as I was visiting with them earlier, as I was going around, we hear finance and operations, and we automatically think it has to do just with money. But it doesn't. It's all the different operational pieces that happen within a school district as well. If you're putting in a new curriculum, you have enough time in your schedule to get that curriculum in a class period every day. If not, it's going to be out of whack, and you won't have your open sequence in order to teach everything in the allotted time. So it gets pretty integral when you're talking about the operations of the schoolhouse too as well. All right, great job. Way to take a deep dive into that. We're going to move into like the last phase tonight and talk about the landscape analysis.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, but he was like the heads of farm.
I know. I made it worse.
Okay, next, we're gonna, as we move into the strategic planning process, the first phase that we really dive into is what we call the landscape analysis. The landscape analysis is really an outside view of what systems you have set up in your district currently based on those three levers. And so Mark and I will do this landscape analysis of your district, specifically around levers 1, 3, 6.
Mind you, we've already done the other levers. That's how you got the academic strategic plan.
Yes.
They're not getting left out. You just already did them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's an outside analysis of what the systems are currently happening in the district and what may need to be strengthened. We'll focus on levers 1, 3, and 6 for this portion of the strategic plan. So the way our meetings will be set up, each month we will address a different lever. So now I can't remember what order we were going in, but
1, 6, 3.
1, 6, 3. So in September, when you meet, we'll be here and we will address the analysis that we find from lever 1. The next month, we will meet and address and present to you what we have found over lever 6. And then November, we will meet with you and present to you the findings from lever 3.
As you can imagine, it's going to be a lot harder to collect data on lever 3 because it's the touchy-feely wraparound campus related stuff. So it just takes more time, A, to present data, and B, for them to analyze that data. Lever 6, the financial physical, like that's more cut and dry. We can present it, they can evaluate it. And then lever 1, systems, like we either have it or we don't, right? So that's really easy to pull and give. So we had to space them out so that you guys are only doing one lever at a time to make these meetings like as efficient as possible as we move through, and you can deep dive into one at a time.
So we will present our findings and you'll deep dive and discuss about it. You'll figure out what areas of the effective district framework from that lever that you may want to focus on or have an area of focus or an initiative for each lever. So that's kind of how the rest of this semester will play out. We'll focus on a lever, we'll present our findings, and then y'all will kind of dive in and come to the conclusion of what should we focus on for the next 3 years with this lever.
Saw Alex shake her head. She's like, you just said the rest of this semester. We're only on day 9.
We're only on the first.
We're only on day 9. But it's true. That gets us to December.
So to kind of ground us in what we're trying to answer through our landscape analysis, we have some essential questions from each lever. I'm going to just warn you that the questions are broad and large, so just bear with us. But for lever 1, planning and performance management, the questions that we will seek to answer about the systems in your district will be: how effectively does the district define, communicate, and align its core strategic elements, including vision, mission, core values, and multi-year student outcome goals, to ensure coherent direction that consistently drives decisions and is understood and supported by all internal and external stakeholders? Number 2, to what extent does the district demonstrate effective execution of its strategic plan through robust performance management functions, systematic implementation planning, and consistent project management processes, utilizing data and accountability structures to ensure on-time, high-quality completion of initiatives and measurable progress towards goals? And then lastly, for lever 1, what district systems are in place for continuous improvement? And so for lever 1 and next month, when we present our findings to you, these will be the kind of the questions that we seek to answer so that you can look into that lever 1 effective district framework and determine what district systems are valid and need to be beefed up over the next 3 to 5 years. Over the next 3 years.
When we break down that lever, we're going to try to identify key practices or essential actions that we want to focus on to address those questions where we might see that gaps in that.
And it might not be that it's anything new. It might be that, hey, they have this in place. But maybe it really needs to be like a high priority area and beefed up. It's not a new thing that it's already in place, but they really need to work on the systems that they have. Lever 3, so this will be in November. We will seek to answer what systems are in place to provide a multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS, and what levels of support are given for students academically, behaviorally, and emotionally. Number 2, to what extent does the district foster a positive, productive, and culturally responsive school-wide culture through consistent routines, universal behavior strategies, and meaningful engagement with families and community partners? Number 3, how comprehensive, accessible, and timely are the district's interventions and specialized supports, including early child programming and crisis response mechanisms designed to address unique student needs and reduce barriers to learning? So these will be the questions that we answer in November. And then lever 6, which we will address in October. Finance and operations. How effectively are our district's time, financial, technology, and physical facility resources strategically allocated and optimized to directly maximize student learning experiences and outcomes and aligned with our overall vision? Are our district's financial, technology, and site operational systems and processes robustly managed to ensure accuracy, security, compliance, and transparency? And are there effective mechanisms in place for their continuous monitoring, assessment, and refinement to enhance overall efficiency? And then lastly, to what extent do our district's enrollment processes and operational services, including transportation, food services, facilities, prioritize and effectively respond to the diverse needs of your students and families to ensure equitable access to quality educational options and foster a welcoming and secure environment for all students? So these will be the questions that we seek to answer in October. To do this, we will be gathering feedback from stakeholders through focus groups. So those will be set up in the next couple of months. We'll be talking to different focus groups around the district, whether that's teachers or administrators or parents,
It's
students.
the same process we did with the academic. We met with all of those stakeholder groups in person, as well as surveys on top of that, to get a broader.
We have artifact gathering and analysis. So this is where we basically have given a list of different artifacts to Alexis and her team and ask them to submit those artifacts to us. And then we will analyze those to see, you know, are there systems in place? And as we look at the artifacts and then we do district walkthroughs and we talk to stakeholders, we're able to triangulate. So this is the process they say they have in place. Is that what people are telling us? Is that what we're seeing in practice? And so we'll utilize these different areas to analyze and come to those conclusions.
As a committee, we will work on setting the committee.
Y'all have any questions?
Earlier, when you gave your staff report, we had a question from the staff member about what is going to be done to ABC and you. Is this not for them going through with Region 12, making sure processes and things that the district is doing in place to improve
So
the.
that's a great question. Through this process and
Yes, and
academic
yes.
plan, we are going through that process. Steering committee say we are putting a plan in place to address those. Absolutely.
Accountability. What are the accountability?
Yes, but it was based upon the performance of that. So.
Well, I think it's also more detail.
Yes.
I think to me, what I gathered from that is, yes, we have these big picture things, which are the 6 initiatives, right? But I think people with boots on the ground are like, okay, I know these big picture things and I know like we're not where we want to be accountability wise. what are the things that we're doing? Maybe I'm at high school and I want to know what's happening at elementary and middle. Maybe I'm at elementary and I want to know what's happening at middle because maybe my kid's going there. Maybe I just love Rapoport, right? And I want to know. So like, what are the details things? Because most of this stuff is going to be board level stuff and you're not going to get really down into the weeds. Like we're going to talk about teacher incentive allotment, right? But we're not going to get with the board on student learning outcomes and TIA walkthroughs and T-test walkthroughs and blah, 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 blah. But I think that's what Tyler and Jennifer are going to talk about. It's just a little bit more of a granular, not like sand level, but a little bit more of a granular detail.
What's happening at each campus to address.
Like, let me just give you a little bit of detail about it, right? Like,
So next steps, number one, Alexis and her team are working to gather those artifacts that we need. They'll also be working with us to set up focus groups that we need for stakeholders that we need to visit with. And then any walkthroughs that we determine are necessary, that will help us set those up. For this, for y'all, I have kind of a year at a glance here. So we're in August and we launched tonight's launching the steering committee. Y'all have gone through the different levers of the effective district framework that we'll be addressing. And then we are beginning the landscape analysis. So we'll start stakeholder feedback sessions. In September, we will address lever 1. We'll have a meeting, and at that meeting, we'll report on that data and we'll determine what initiatives we need to focus on for lever 1. October, we'll have lever 6 and do the same thing. November, the same thing. The plan is to have a draft in December. And then in January, we will work with the district level staff and campus level staff, the principals, the administrators, to really come up with an implementation plan for how are they here are the initiatives, here are the focus areas that you would like for them to work on. And then we'll walk through with them on what does that look like in everyday life? Like, what are we going to actually implement and what's the plan and how does that roll out? And so by February, the goal is to have final strategic plan to add to that academic plan to continue out your remainder of the 3 years after the show.
Absolutely. And next month, we're really going to be learning that process of what we did with that data and how we determine those initiatives. In October and November, hopefully it'll be a rinse and repeat. Is the new data on a new level in order to draft that plan.
That's all we have.
So we're well before now.
that is some intense condensation. Condensing right there, not condensing.
The focus for tonight is to make sure that we have just a good broad understanding of what we're expecting from you as a steering committee. It's our job to gather the information on the data, look at it, break it down, and bring you that feedback so we can utilize this time to make a decision.
So before they run, homework for the next meeting so that they're ready to go and ready to discuss when you guys bring landscape analysis stuff. Do you want them to have like look through lever 1? What would you like for them to have done before they come in?
Yes, that would be.
Yeah, we'll probably.
We'll send it out.
Yes.
Let's say we'll send it out electronically in preparation while we are prepping some focus groups. That way it gives you time to go through, because one of the 3 groups got to look at level 1 tonight. We'll get that broad view for like to make it familiar with the lever, the essential actions, and the key practices. And we would tell you, as we look at the data, focus on the key practices and possibly some portions of the essential actions, because they may spell out or become the initiatives in which we need to focus on to address those gaps we see.
It will, using the documents that they're talking about that we'll send out to you, will help us. I think had you word it earlier, stay in our lane. Right.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the strategic plan, like we need to make sure that when we're talking about this lever, that we're staying in the lane for that lever, using what has been identified as best practices, areas of focus in that lever. If we walk through it,
And
so.
really familiarizing yourself with it before you come will be helpful, especially because there is a finite amount of time and we want to be cognizant of that and respectful of your time. And so being able to focus on the lever that we're focused on when we're here for that month is going to be.
So we're gonna get all that after this meeting.
Yes, we'll send it out in the next week because we want to give you plenty of time. Just a side note too, moving forward, legislative changes for board posting dates. It's 3 full business days prior to your meeting date. So we'll be posting agendas on Wednesday before the Tuesday meeting because it has to be full days. So Tuesday doesn't count. If it's a holiday, it's even earlier than that. So just, yeah. So a full week, basically a full week ahead. We'll have that. And my goal is to still try to get you any lengthy materials prior to that and any like materials just for you to review that by the day after it's posted. Finalize the agenda, make sure you have all the materials.
I think just one question, you just as a helpful board tip, some of us have a lot of knowledge of this, stay on, but to stay in the lane. I understand some information comes to the board, so we understand what's going on in the district or wherever the district needs to go for educational reasons. But if it launches questions because we're trying to understand, or can you help guide the board and say, this isn't something that you have oversight of, but I want you to know A, B. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it helps.
That's why I do a lot of information giving at our meetings and a lot of extra talking. Is even though it's not something that you can direct, like you would be out of your lane if you directed it. It's not out of your lane to know about it. Yeah. Not out of your lane to know about it, but trying to direct it would be. Yeah. That's also where over these next 3 months, like reading through those levers ahead of time and being like, what is that? What is that? Can you walk me through that? What does this look like on here? So that you feel comfortable when we get here, having those conversations, because this is where we're going to direct this work. So just make sure that you've really thought about it. And there's not any stupid question, right? This is all new academic jargon for most people. So please read through it and ask. And if you need time, lunches, breakfasts, coffees, whatever, like I would be more than happy to stop and walk through any part of this so that each lever you feel comfortable and ready to come to the meeting to hear what they have found. They're going to be really honest, good and bad, right? Things that they found, things they haven't. And then be ready to help set a strategic focus, initiative, task, area of emphasis for that lever. Not 20 of them. 1, maybe 2, because we already have 6. Well, we already have 6 and now 2 of them are mine, right? So like we already have 6. So we're adding to that, but we just want to make sure that they're still functional and doable.
So we thank y'all for your time tonight. We know that y'all need to adjourn, so we're gonna go ahead and let y'all adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
All those in favor? Any opposed?
Thank y'all.
Motion adjourned.
8:35. Thanks, y'all.
Pass them down.
Take your 10. Pass it down.
Do we have those?
Finish. That is the thing of the y'all. So let's.
Okay, thank you.
we can turn it back to the.
Got it? All the way over there. Yep. You want? Take snacks with you if you want, because believe it or not, somebody's got to do it. That's right. Yes. Take snacks. Don't feel bad.
No, she's retired. Last I heard. She did a very next one last year. And I.
Y'all have a good evening, guys. Thank y'all very much.
Next Wednesday. Oh, yeah, it's on my calendar. I'm reading emails right now, responding.
That's perfect.
I know when this. That's what I was gonna try to reach out again.
Yes.
Okay.
It should be the title, but it says not. That's
We'd love the opportunity to do it. Last time, you guys reached out to.
Well, it was new last time, so it might be that once we've done it. And here, so you have new things. What was left? That was kind of where they're.
AI is really good now, something, or it's
It's
better, yeah, good, yeah, it's better.
It's not awful now.
But, yeah, Google Translate was. So this is better, but still has those
Love-
details.
Love to do it again. We'll need to find out soon since we.
But and I also want to make sure that it makes sense. It makes sense. So if you read it and you're like, we would never say this in the
This is why
Spanish language
first need to
culture.
have it in English, so that way I was like, oh, this is what it means.
Perfect. That's great.
Yeah, perfect, so,
Love it.
I do that.
Thank you, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
You guys think like you.
No, we're all good.
Process.
In all steps. I hope that you are able to. I know not all. Because sometimes, but I didn't. Now, if you're well established and you want to say for any existing contracts. But she was. As the leader for some of the field, I would have told you absolutely. But it was funny. Oh, it's not right, but yes. But still. Yeah, anyway, it was just. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
There's a lot of.
So we want
It's just.
to. Outside.
Oh, that's okay.
Right,
Hang on, wait,
we
hold on.
have 5 million of these buckets.
We don't need any more
We
than.
don't need any more. And John Morris is not working here anymore. I used to just give him all the stuff we wanted to throw away.
Teachers use these, or you want these, or?
Use this for something on the farm. Did you?
Yeah, it's not here.
We really don't.
Good, go fast. I'm working with the word summary, so I'll finish that and get out.
I did, before my computer died,
pull every, pull list from the waiver code with all the district stores in the area. And put their letter in their percentage for this year and go pull their EcoDisc.
You did?
From TAPR. So it's last year's EcoDisc, it's our district's EcoDisc. And it's pretty much. Got a number?
I think so. That might be, maybe not. Came out right
Can I move this back here? Are we done with this?
Yeah,
Does it turn off?
it automatically shuts up. Shuts off. Hey, I have your computer. Did you make it out to your car yet? Oh, you are trekking. Well, what I can do is just put it at the front desk of the high school and they're there at 7:30. Well, what time is it? Wait, no, they're not there at 7:30.
Closer to.
They're gonna be there a little closer to 8, or I'm still here for a little while if you want to swing back over. 8 o'clock is okay? Okay, I'll put it at the front desk of the high school. You'll come the same building where we have a board meeting, just go around to the front of the building in the grass. Instead of in the back. If you just go right around the front of the building, walk right in the front door, they'll let you in, they'll give you your laptop. The faces the fountain, the faces on. Yep. Just come right in there. No, that's okay. We got back in and removed the tables and I'm like, I think that's the lawyer's computer. Yep, it's secured. It's up there. Okay, bye.